Osaka had a Hello Kitty room, which Sanrio found out about and it made him close down. And when I heard that was going to close it down, I rushed to go to the Hello Kitty room and I was there once because it felt like so decadent, so wrong.
I'd love to have Hello Kitty watching me. I need her presence observing me in this most sacred union.
Would you do that one off camera?
I would do that one off camera, just because it's the Hello Kitty room.
What's going on, guys?
Kampai, my friend.
Well, I gotta actually pour one before we say that.
It's a pre-kampai.
A pre-comp.
There you go.
That sounds dirty. That sounds dirty, Jake Adelstein. What up, Drinking Buddies? Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we have a couple sponsors that we need you to hear from. As a reminder, if you want to see this content ad-free, go to patreon.com/Matt Slayer. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Hey there, I'm Angela. I'm the lucky companion who met Jack online. I'm more than just a doll. I'm his friend and his partner in all of life's precious moments. Our connection is extraordinary, filled with shared interests, cozy movie nights, and romantic evenings. Life's adventures are sweeter when shared, and I'm grateful we found each other.
Thank you.
Lifelike companionship is just a click away.
It's all interpretation, Matt. It's all interpretation.
Well, everything's all an interpretation.
Anything's a double entendre if you want it to be.
Yeah,
That's true. That is true.
You didn't have to work very hard for that one.
Didn't have to work very hard.
It's popped right up.
You were very ready for it to receive it.
I was.
I'm so sorry. I did not mean that.
It was like I was gaping for it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You're way ahead of me on this one.
The drinks just started.
I haven't had anything to drink yet. Not an ounce. I've had water.
I am going to say this. The delightful Amazon, the love of my life, Ms. Nakamura, cautioned me not to drink too much, so I will be moderate.
Yes.
By whose standards?
By my standards.
Okay.
Moderate my standards.
Moderate by my standards and moderate by your standards might be two separate things.
Probably different. I remember I only have like 2/3 of my liver left, so
Just makes you a cheap date.
it is. Anyone can drink me under the table. I know that Choco certainly has many times.
I can
She's
drink.
tiny, and she's tiny.
I could drink myself under the table. It's quite embarrassing. So you might win me this time because
If you drink yourself under the table, isn't that like losing?
Depends on what adventure you get out of the drinking.
Exactly. See, I lose every time.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Okay. She doesn't have headphones, and I have headphones on. Now I feel silly. Can I take my headphones off?
If you really want to, Jake.
I really want to. If my voice is unmodulated, you just tell me. Just like move with your hand.
Oh, I will.
Like-
Don't worry. I will.
You're off mic. Okay.
Hey, I would have headphones and join the party with you.
Well, you can take Jake's headphones if you want them.
I'm okay.
You're good.
with it.
You're good.
Thank
She
you.
doesn't want the headphones that
I want to
badly.
match. I want to match.
I agree. I agree. We
We're
should go
units.
for the matching look.
Yes.
So
Well, now I'm the odd man out. I see how it is. I see how it is. I'm on the opposite side of the table. I was forced to the other side of the car.
You are the engineer. Yeah, on the way over here. I mean, this only makes sense, and this isn't me discriminating against vertically challenged people. There were 4 of us in the car, and the question is who's going to sit in the middle. And Leana, being diminutive, am I saying that diminutive right?
I believe so.
Diminutive, yeah.
Diminutive. It's kind of like the short version of demure, like applied to height.
I'm sure.
Diminutive.
Okay.
That she was in the middle. That made more sense.
Though we did initially put the 3 of us in back.
Yes.
That wasn't very bright.
And I was sitting like I was in a middle seat and
What's
coaching.
really funny is that I was holding the door open for you and I was staring at you and I thought you were going to take the front seat. And I was like, I am prepared for this. And then they all seamlessly, without wording, got into the back of the car.
I know you were holding it over me, but I felt it was like somehow like taking shotgun without calling it was such a dick move. This is what happens when you grow up in a family of like 2 sisters. You're kind of like I didn't call shotgun. I'm not really entitled to take the seat next to the driver.
That is fair. That is very
It's
fair.
Could have called it. No one else called it.
But I was like, maybe I'm arriving late to the game. You don't know. But thank you for we pulled over and then we resat ourselves and we felt very adult. It worked very well. We were actually able to wear our seatbelts.
Yes.
All of us.
It was very difficult to put the seatbelts in though, Because at one point we were trying to figure out what it was. I think it took like 3 minutes to figure out where the seat buckle was.
I think this is my second time or third time in my life in a Tesla, and the door handles and the seat belts, I just like.
Oh, they're different the handles are different on different models too. So.
Yes, each model has a different newfangled way of pinching your fingers.
Can you remember when, I used to think Teslas were cool, and then Elon Musk borrowed money from the Russians to buy Twitter, and then the Russians owned him, and he turned into such a dork. Now I'm just like, I feel like it's tainted the Tesla brand. I'm sorry if there's any Trump or Elon Musk fans out there.
No, but I do own a Tesla.
Yeah, but that's before Elon was a dick. So they're
No, I bought it last year.
Oh,
I'm not a fan of the man. It was purely economical.
Was it cheap?
With rebates, yes.
There we go.
There's rebates?
Oh yeah, the U.S. government and the California government are both like, please drive EV. We'll throw money at you.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong country. No, I can get solar paneling for my house in Japan. They will subsidize that, which I am in the process of doing. I have to apply for it. But I'm like, that makes sense. But I'm not going to get a Tesla.
Well, driving in Japan doesn't make much sense.
I lost my license during the pandemic. So
How did you lose your license?
I was, my license was due to expire in 2020 on my birthday, March 28th. Hey, anyone who wants to like steal my identity, here's a clue. And the pandemic started, and Delta canceled some flights. And then when I got my flight rescheduled, I noticed that Japan had decided to lock everyone out of the country who wasn't Japanese. And even though I have permanent residency, was like a green card, it was very clear that if I left, I could not come back. Kind of like working for Bloomberg. You can leave anytime you want, but you can never go back. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to get my driver's license renewed. And Japan sort of kept us all prisoner, like sort of COVID shogun, for 9 months or something before you could leave and get back.
COVID shogun, I like that.
Kind of.
That had to be exceptionally rough, seeing as the size of the homes in Tokyo.
I was lucky in that I had rented what they call jikobuken. I think Leanne probably understands this. It means that something terrible happened in the house I bought. And so the price was really, really reasonable. But in my side gig, because everybody has a side gig, as a Zen Buddhist priest, I just did the scare away the hungry ghost things myself. It's economical and it was huge. I actually had a huge place to live. I mean, it was so big that at one point, I know that Jesse, that if you're listening to this, like, why don't you stop listening now? Because this isn't your cup of tea and it predates you, so it's not really a problem. But I had this huge house, 2 floors. And I also had like enough room to put a treadmill in the living room. And then, long story, I ended up living with this German nurse on working holiday who got caught in Japan. So it was nice to have lots of space. At one point, I think in the pandemic, I had living with German nurse downstairs, and then this lovely Chinese Canadian dominatrix living upstairs with me, and it made pandemic life quite enjoyable.
I suppose a Canadian dominatrix would do that.
Tiny one.
Tiny Canadian dominatrix.
But I never let her tie me up because this wasn't my thing.
Oh, but did they ever tell you what happened in the house?
I had a good idea, but it's like, I mean, I don't really need to know.
Okay.
I went to this real estate agent who specializes in dealing with like hostesses and Yakuza and undesirables. And I said, look, I want a house in this area. I don't care what has happened at the house, but I just want it to be cheap and spacious. He's like, I have a place for you. But, and so I said, all right. He said, let me tell you the details. I said, I'll just sign the paper that says you told me the details. I'll just do an exorcism. We'll be fine. The amazing thing about the house, and this sounds stupid to people who haven't lived in Japan, is it had a dishwasher dryer in it. And as someone who likes to cook and has never had that in a house in Japan, I was absolutely delighted. It was like one of the things that sold me on it.
Amazing.
It had a guest room, had a huge living room, had an upstairs room. It was all one giant tatami room, and it had a dishwasher dryer. So I was quite happy. I like plenty of space.
Utilities like that are very difficult to find in Japan.
Yeah. I paid the equivalent of what would be $800 a month.
Wow.
That's insane.
I know. It's one of the reasons I stay in Japan. But eventually I had to move because I think the landlord decided that, the house was so old that if something happened to the house, that he might be liable. I was like, I'm not going to sue you, dude. Just like let me live here. But, my lease ended, and I ended up finding a new place in Tokyo. But it was nice while it lasted during the pandemic.
Less cursed.
Yeah, well, I didn't really ask about this place. I'm not really bothered by curse.
I see. Yeah.
There's actually, when I go back, we do this thing called osegaki, which is this kind of like, it's done every year in October. It's this Soto Zen Buddhist ritual where you basically do sort of a exorcism of what are called hungry ghost. So without getting into the metaphysics of it, in Japanese folk belief, when you die, you have 3 places you can be, 6 realms of existence. You can come back as a human. You can come back as an animal. You can come back in the realm of warring spirits, which I think is a metaphor for being born in a country in the middle of a war. You can go to hell. You can go to heaven. Or you can be stuck as a hungry ghost. And a hungry ghost is literally pictured as this like really fat figure with a very thin neck. So they're never satiated. So people who have things left on this earth, who are sort of like, spoiler alert if you haven't seen The Sixth Sense. So if you're like Bruce Willis and you don't know that you're dead and you're sort of still hovering around this world, then you're basically a hungry ghost. So in this ritual, which is the only one I know really how to do well, you basically put out sake, because of course ghosts drink in Japan.
Well, of course.
Sake and beer and various foods, and maybe the foods the dead one liked. The people gather for, who belong to the temple, and sometimes who don't belong to the temple. And you do this prayer, which in ancient Japanese sounds very mysterious. But if you actually translate it basically says, like, hello, hungry ghost. How are you? You're roaming around forever, not satiated and unsatisfied, but today is your lucky day because we prepared a feast for you. So eat as much as you want, drink as much as you want. Get drunk, get full, get comfortable.
Leave us alone.
And then, halfway through the chant, you go, by the way, I just wanted you to know that you're dead. You're dead. You don't have a corporeal existence. There's nothing you can do on this earth. Any problems you have left are not going to be solved. It's time to move on. So see that white light over there? You need to head for that white light. Great having you here. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Good luck in the next incarnation. Wow. And then, a couple gatte, sowaga, done. And that is how you send it. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of ambivalent about the metaphysics of Zen Buddhism, but when I get asked, I'm like, I am sure that your loved one has passed on to the other world. I'm sure that this is what they needed, and that that you shouldn't be burdened by any fear that they're still hanging around, because it's not the time to say, historically speaking, the origins of this particular sutra are in doubt whether this is actually canonical or not. It could be true or maybe it isn't, but that's not what people want to hear.
Yeah.
So I do my best to be soothing because that's the job.
Yeah.
It could work.
Maybe. Well, I was going to pencil you in for my funeral at some point. Now, if I don't know there's a full success rate.
I don't do funerals yet. I haven't learned to do the funeral rites. And there's a really good reason for that, Matt. So around 2017, you can read it all in my new book, Tokyo Noir.
There's your plug.
My phone went off. I turned my phone off, but my watch goes off. Sorry, I'll try and figure out how to turn this thing. I don't even know how to turn this thing off.
We'll just have to put it outside.
It never rests. It never sleeps.
Wait,
the only way
no.
you can silence
I turned it
it
off.
is
I turned
to
it off.
kill it. Oh,
You-
okay.
It almost worked. You had me believe. I knew there was a way.
So in your new book,
So in this book, it goes into the complicated things that led me into to taking the Zen Buddhist priest vows to 2017. But one of the things that I tried to do was like, I spent 30 years covering the underworld. So I told a bunch of people who are still in the Yakuza that I'm still in touch with them, like kind of like I've turned over a new leaf. I've taken these Zen Buddhist priest vows. That I'm not the same person I used to be, and so I'm probably when you leave, great, let's hang out. But right now I'm on a new path, And they're like, you're a Zen Buddhist priest. That is great because no one will do funerals for us anymore. Like, can you do funerals for us? And I'm like, I don't know how to do the funeral rites yet, but when that time comes, I'm sure I'd be glad to. And since I don't know, I can't be asked. But I fear that once word gets out, oh yeah, he can do funerals, I'd be like besieged by requests that are hard to refuse.
That is a very difficult situation. Not from just the desire for knowledge, like, oh, I would love to learn this, but also the complications of what would happen if I had the power of this knowledge.
Yeah, well, yes, it's like, there have been people that have been good sources, and I mean, I never really consider, they're gangsters, right?
Yes.
Their loyalty is to their gang and to their members. And we might have some kind of quasi-friendship, but it's never a real friendship because the loyalties to their boss, to their brothers in the organization will almost always trump me.
Right.
It's like I took care of a coyote for a couple months when I was a kid. Someone hit it with a car. They took it to my dad because he was a veterinarian before he was a pathologist. And they thought it was a dog. It turned out to be a coyote. So he fixed the leg. We took care of it for a while. And I mean, I liked the coyote, and I fed it and I walked it, and and eventually was healthy enough to leave. But every time I would go out to feed the coyote or take it for a walk in this, like, we had a sort of fenced off area, it would sort of size me up like, okay, like, you're sort of my buddy, but if I need to kill you, I'm looking for the soft spot. And I was like, this animal is never going to be domesticated. And that's how I feel about Yakuza. I'm like, you and I, we might have a reciprocal relationship. We might like each other, but we'll never be fully trusting each other. And that's one of the reasons I'm like not anxious to have the kind of skills that would put me in a situation where I actually have to say no. Yeah. It's easier to say, I would love to, but I don't know how to yet.
Right. It would be disrespectful for me to do
It would be disrespectful. It would be like, after all I've done for you.
But it is also very sad to me that they can't have rights for their dead because so many people are refusing it.
Well, because it becomes a criminal act to provide services for the Yakuza ever since October 1st of 2011. So if you are giving them a funeral or accepting money from them, you are in essence could be prosecuted as someone who is working with organized crime.
Wow.
So that means a lot of funeral places don't want to handle them or don't want to do the rites.
So what are they doing with their dead?
I think they're just getting cremated and burying them at home.
That is so sad.
It is kind of sad. I mean, at one point you could argue, well, that's the life you chose.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you get. But it does seem like, well, most regular Japanese people get to have a funeral.
Culturally, it's about, honoring the dead and placing a respect to put those.
Well, and you're just like Tibetan Buddhism, there's this kind of belief that after you die, there's a kind of limited period of time for you to move on to the next incarnation. It's 49 days. You got 49 days. If you either go to the light immediately and are reincarnated, if you're really good, you escape the cycle of birth and death. But most people kind of wander around for 49 days until their next incarnation.
On the point of this is the life they signed up for, if they were members before 2011, it's not the life they signed up for. They didn't sign up knowing, oh, hey, I'm not going to be able to even have funeral rights. And since, as you've said previously, a lot of them are much older than signing up in 2011 at this point.
Yeah, the average age of a Yakuza is 55. I am 55. Because nobody young joins. It's like becoming a newspaper journalist. I mean, there's no future in it. And the penalties are stiff. That's very inconvenient. So yeah, it's not the life they signed up for. I mean, but Japan does, Japan has curious laws. My second book, The Last Yakuza, took years to get out because I was doing a legal check in 2011. And I realized, okay, in 2010, Japan repealed the statute of limitations on murder. So the statute of limitations on murder was like 20 years, if I remember correctly. Meaning, if you killed someone, 20 years went by, you were free. Because I guess the idea was that they don't want to keep cases open forever, that you probably suffered the guilt of having killed someone for 20 years, whatever the reasons were. But then, there was like one spectacular case where somebody, like the day after the statute of limitations came forward and said, yeah, I killed this person, ha, 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 ha. So that created a huge uproar. Japan repealed it, but I didn't realize that they made it retroactive. So imagine doing a book of interviews about the history of the Yakuza, and you've got like 4 or 5 people are talking about people they killed when they were young, now in their 60s, because they're thinking, there's no way this can come back to haunt me. This required me to do a lot of rewriting.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. I'm sorry for all of the hours that you spent doing that, but also thank you to the respect that you paid to them.
But what even made it worse is that I got this. So I sort of rewrite it, and I'm it looks like we're on the road to publication. Then one of the company lawyers is like, "We would like you to go back and get permissions from all the Yakuza you interviewed," and I was like, "Release forms," and I'm like, I believe that the email I sent back was one line, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" And I was like, first of all, if it's not off the record, it's on the record. And second of all, like, considering these circumstances, I don't really want to remind someone that what they told me could get them thrown into jail for the rest of their life or possibly executed, because that might also indicate to them that the way to solve that problem is kill me. So absolutely not. I'm absolutely not going to do that.
Yeah.
So are you holding on to some of these stories till after these Yakuza members pass?
Oh, well, the last Yakuza, there was one chapter that wasn't in the French edition because my source on it said, like, you can write this when I'm dead. So he died during the pandemic. So the English version of it is in there. There was a period of time when there was a Yakuza boss in the Inagawa Kai who began kidnapping other Yakuza bosses and holding them for ransom. And amongst the things that he would do to ensure that he got the ransom and they didn't go to the police, once he'd kidnap a rival boss, they would sodomize them with like a vibrator or something and take photos of it, like these really humiliating photos. So it'd be like, pay the ransom money or kill your boss. And if you go to the police, we release these photos of them being butt-fucked to the public. And that, worked for a while. And well, so the chapter is essentially this one Yakuza was tasked with finding who was responsible, and one of the bosses remembered, as he was thrown into a car, he remembered the chimes that played around 5 p.m. at the place where they're holding him hostage. And there are usually at 5 p.m. in Japan, there are places that they play these little chimes to indicate, like, you've been to Japan, that it's like, hey kids, time to go home. It's the end of the day. It's 5 p.m. It's getting dark outside. And some areas have very distinctive chimes. So this had a very distinctive chime. So he remembered where they were getting off of the intersection. So this one Yakuza was in charge of like using that information to locate where he was being held. And from that detective process, they actually determined who the kidnapper was.
Wow.
And I don't want to give this away because maybe there are people who haven't seen Tokyo Vice, the TV series, but the end of the series was basically inspired by a true story. When you watch how it ends, you should know that that's not creative writing. That is just stealing from something that actually happened.
Oh yeah.
Some of the most unbelievable things are all real.
Yeah, I mean,
things that have actually happened. Some of the craziest things you could never imagine. It could only have just happened in real life.
I remember here's like 2 unbelievable stories in one. So it's October 2017. It's Halloween Day.
Wow.
I had plans to go to Kobe to the Yamaguchi-gumi headquarters. Yamaguchi-gumi is the largest organized crime group. They used to have like 40,000 members.
Wow.
And every year they have a Halloween party for the neighborhood kids because there's an international school in the neighborhood. Now, Halloween, wasn't something widely celebrated in Japan for decades. But I mean, they'd been doing this for decades. And the reason is that, there's a Canadian international school in the neighborhood. And one year the kids knocked on the door and said, trick or treat. Some Yakuza answered the door and there's all these kids in costumes going trick or treat. He has no idea what to do. So he just gives them all like 1,000 yen bills. And someone in the neighborhood is like, giving the children organized crime money is probably not going to go over well. So, I guess they must have sent someone like to study up. So they began this tradition of having a Halloween party for the neighborhood kids, like these lavish Halloween parties.
See, they could have been teaching the kids how to launder money young.
It's true. And there
Missed
was
opportunity.
and there was an Indian family in the neighborhood, and I looked Indian enough, so I would just sort of sneak in as their uncle. But that year, because the Yamaguchi-gumi was in the middle of a gang war, they had posted a sign that this, sadly, this year's Halloween party was going to be canceled. But I was convinced they were actually going to do it anyway. So I got up really early in the morning, and I'm getting ready to go to cover this. And I get this call. It's like 5 a.m. And it's like it's a number from this cop in Kanagawa Prefecture. I haven't heard from him in years. And he's like, he didn't say dude because he's speaking Japanese, but he was basically like, dude, like you got to come down here, man. You got this batshit crazy case. You should cover it. Trust me. And I'm like, it's like 5 a.m. I'm pretty set on going to Kobe, and I'm kind of like, well, I'm not really covering local crime anymore. Writing for the Daily Beast, and I'm sort of covering, crime of, international issues, social issues, politics, and sort of your run-in-the-mill murder isn't really the kind of story I'm following anymore. I appreciate you calling me. And he's like, shut up. We got 9 heads in 9 coolers, 9 severed heads, 9 coolers, 1 apartment. And I'm like, I'm like, dude, I am so there. I'm so sorry. Tell me the address. So I went down there, and it was this total scumbag who was working as a scout for the adult visual industry for like adult films. And he'd killed one girl and stole her money. And then he started looking for people who were suicidal on Twitter. And then he would say like, yeah, I'll kill you. And they'd take him they'd arrive at his apartment, and he'd sexually assault them, and he'd kill them, and he'd take their money. And one girl's boyfriend showed up. He killed him. That was the one guy. He got away with nine murders before. His last victim, her brother had knew the password to her phone, and when she didn't come home, he got into her social media, and he figured out the last station he went. And he went to the police, and the police sort of saw her on CCTV coming out of the station. They tracked her to this guy's house, and when they opened the house door, there were the 9 heads in the 9 coolers.
What did he do with the rest of the bodies?
I don't think we really know. And I don't know why he kept the heads.
Yeah, that's weird.
Trophies,
Maybe.
But in a cooler?
Yeah.
Because that keeps them fresh, right?
For
Maybe
how
he
long?
Maybe he just wants to like look at them for a little while longer to make it last.
Yeah, I think there's
so
there's more to
awful.
that story. I mean, he's done some
Yeah.
interviews while he's in jail waiting for execution. Can't come soon enough, if you ask me.
No, yeah.
Well, Japan just randomly selects a date to execute their people on death row.
Yeah,
right?
you get hung in Japan.
But it's not like here in the States where like when you're on death row, you have an execution date.
No, I'm gonna put on my jacket because I'm a little chilly. Fortunately, I don't have an actual like one of those mics that moves around. So
Unfortunately.
yeah, fortunately, right?
Well, no, fortunately would be that you had a mic that moved around because then you could
Oh, sorry. All
get
right.
animated. And
Okay. But no, you don't get they just at the middle of the night they just call you like you're done, and then and you get carted off to the gallows. It's a painful way to die.
Is it?
Apparently, because
Hanging would be very
Well-
prolonged because of the asphyxiation,
well,
but
but-
also they do say a lot of hangings. Also, the deaths come from a snapped neck and not from the asphyxiation.
but a lot of times it fails.
Yeah.
So I've I've only talked to 1 or 2 people who witnessed an execution. I just got coins in my pocket. There's jingle.
Well, yeah. Laundry.
Yeah, for the laundry. Apparently, yeah, it goes wrong more often than not, and people,
I
are
feel
suffering
that.
for many minutes on there before they die.
Mm.
So it's not a fun way to die.
Yeah.
I mean, not that there's any fun way to die.
I mean, there's a couple.
I mean, there is. I mean, if you're really looking for the best way to die, there's always the best-selling manual of suicide, Kanzen Jisatsu Manryuru, which is now in its like 18th printing.
Wow.
What do they recommend?
It's still published?
The electrocution, apparently.
That really doesn't sound like that. You need a lot of voltage to make that fast.
Yeah, but I don't know why I saw this. I remember everything that I see. I don't have a photographic memory, but I have an eidetic memory. And there was an article that was saying death by lethal injection. Actually, a lot of the times it goes wrong because they don't know how to give the appropriate quantities of it. So the person suffers a lot longer. So
Well, yeah, that's why.
execution makes sense because I was thinking like, oh, euthanasia might help, but a lot of the times it ends up being less humane.
Well, the problem with the lethal injection, especially in modern America, is we were sourcing the drugs from the UK, who was like, we're not giving the drugs for capital punishment anymore. So a lot of prison systems in the US are kind of trying to figure out a new cocktail to do it. But even the original cocktail, there's a reason to give them a paralytic first. So the audience didn't realize that they were suffering.
That they're stuck.
Do you know,
Awful.
I mean, what they
Capital
used to euthanize dogs is essentially what we use to euthanize people. The name of the most popular one, I think in the 90s, was called Sleepaway, which my dad was once accused of stealing by the VA hospital because he borrowed something to put a dog to sleep and didn't bring it back immediately.
Why would the VA hospital have that?
Because they do experiments on lab animals.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I was just like, poor soldiers. Sorry, thank you for serving your country. Time to go.
Well, if you would like to check out my podcast, Night Shift, wherever you get your podcast, that's about 40 veterans being murdered at a VA hospital in 1992. But that's just something so grim. Let's save that for
Well,
another
also,
show.
that was hopefully not government sanctioned. Hopefully,
No, not government sanctioned. But yeah, the manual of suicide, and I interviewed the author, who I thought was a total psychopath.
Wow.
It came out in like 93. I was just starting as a reporter, and there were a couple articles about it being, like everyone was offended because it's this, book about how to kill yourself, including skulls for the amount of pain, notes on how much impact it made,
Wow.
how successful it was, illustrated. And I remember thinking, it's only a matter of time before someone uses this to kill themselves.
Yeah.
So I went to the medical examiner for one of the police stations I was covering, and I was like, hey, this book is out. As soon as someone kills themselves with it, would you call me? Which he did. And he let me come to the crime scene, which is almost unheard of.
Wow.
But because my father was a medical examiner, he sort of felt like a kinship to me. So that was the very first scoop I ever had. Like, kid electrocutes himself with Perfect Manual of Suicide, book found by body. And then another one happened, and this is kind of hard to imagine in this day and age. Me and the editor and the assistant editor, we had a discussion. We decided we wouldn't write it up because we felt it might actually be encouraging people to kill themselves. So we just dropped it. And I think that was a good call, actually.
Isn't there? So there's a forest in Japan that is nicknamed the Suicide Forest.
Aokigahara, I think.
made famous by Logan Paul.
Oh, yeah, that was a bad
Unfortunately,
one.
Very, very gravely so. But it was inspired by another piece of literature, which was a romance novel where suicide occurs and people in paying homage to the novel because they saw it as a romantic way of committing suicide would go into the forest, and they still happen to this day.
Yeah. Also in Tokyo Noir is a discussion of my least favorite Japanese literary great, Dazai Osamu, who was this, incredibly narcissistic kind of one of these writers who sort of does crazy things to write about them and writes sort of thinly disguised fiction. And so he would constantly do these suicide pacts with these women in his life, except he would live and they would die.
Oh,
And he would do it again. He did it like 3 or 4 times before they both finally died.
What would he tell these women?
Like, I love you. We can only be happy in the afterlife. This crazy shit. Or like, your husband will never give you a divorce. Let's die together and be forever.
No, that's when you commit murder. That's when you commit murder. Sorry, don't commit murder. But that's when you commit murder.
That's the American way.
Well, no, the American way is just to leave his ass and get alimony.
So, I mean, there's this whole thing called Muri Shinju. It's like when a father or a mother kills themselves and they kill every member of the family with them.
Yes.
You know,
So
sometimes everyone is on agreement that this is, that life is too hard, and sometimes not with their agreement. And I was like, I realized that in medieval Japan that this might have been considered a virtue, but why don't we just call it murder? It's murder. This guy murdered his family and killed himself. Let's not call it Muri Shinju, which means like forced suicide by love. It's like
Honorable.
it's murder. Let's just call it murder. That would be better.
Probably.
But Japan seems to romanticize that, and so we were like, let's not give this guy any more publicity than we already have.
Yeah.
Besides right now.
Who in this audience is going to go buy the manual of suicide? Yeah.
Quite possibly.
Please spend 5 years learning Japanese and then decide whether you want
I'm sure there is an English translation somewhere.
Probably. Probably you could chat GPT it. It's not worth it. Choose life. Also, if you kill yourself, you're probably going to be reborn as like a hungry ghost, and it's a horrible existence. I'm not going to exercise you because I warned you. I'm just going to have to, spend a couple kalpa suffering as a hungry ghost.
I don't know. You get a buffet and an open bar.
Oh, but here's an interesting story about Aokigahara, like the suicide forest. And there was another place that's really famous for suicide. One of the biggest drops, one of the things that caused the biggest drops in suicide in the area was Pokemon Go. Because there's all these really rare Pokemon in this forest.
Are they ghost type?
So people.
I don't know.
That would be awful.
So you had like all these people looking for rare Pokemon in the suicide forest, and and they would come across people intent on suicide, and they'd be kind of like, are you looking for Pokemon too? And it's just like nobody wants to kill themselves around Pokemon Go fans. I mean, it's just
a good thing though.
Yeah, probably the greatest thing that Nintendo has ever done for the world.
To be completely honest, if it was in Aokigahara Forest, the Pokemon type was probably fairy type. That's what I'm assuming it was.
Yeah, not as good of a joke.
Yeah,
I know, but I had to be a nerd. I had to insert that thoughtful.
I played Pokemon Go because my daughter was into it. I caught like a Pikachu, and I was like, I'm done. Like, what? It's the only Pokemon I know. I've got a Pikachu. What else is there to get?
Jake, you fame whore. I got the famous one. I don't need any more. I don't need to find any Pokemon that are up and coming. I don't need to discover any up and coming Pokemon. Just the famous one is all I care about. Jesus Christ, Jake.
What? It's like, what do I need? Trouser Snake or what any of the other Pokemon are?
You should totally get Muck at least. No, but really, they have different Pikachus, by the way. They have different versions. Like for the anniversary, they have a Pikachu that has a little birthday hat on his head.
It's like we're getting into like a multiverse thing there. No, there's only one Pikachu.
But they look so much more cute when they have
You got to get them all. Really? I mean, who came up with that one? You got to get them all. That's
someone in Nintendo's marketing who...
Yes, someone in the marketing that was extremely direct, but also extremely successful.
Did you know that the founder of Nintendo, one of the earlier founders, like they originally were a card company, right?
In the 1800s.
Yeah, so they made Hanafuda, and a lot of their customers were Yakuza. So I read this in the memoir of one of these guys, and it was like they were always like going out and making sure the cards and the vending machines were in pristine order, because the last thing they wanted was some Yakuza coming to me like these cards were damaged and it cost me and I didn't win the game, or they were easily identifiable. And one of the early founders of Nintendo, because he was so desperate to find something other than cards to make money, like they were running love hotels. They were doing a lot of
love
hotels. Nintendo owned love hotels.
Do they still own any?
No.
That would be insane.
Pardon me.
I want to take
themed love hotel room.
Oh, I want to take you to the Mushroom Kingdom.
Isn't Donald Trump's like? Didn't Stormy Daniels say his penis resembled like one of the mushrooms from, what is it?
The toad. The toad.
Toad or Todd?
Toad.
Well, that is such a horrific image. I mean, of the many horrible things that Trump has done to us, that is probably the worst. Because
Toad does have a very...
I don't think he did that one to us. I don't think anyone at this table that was done to.
It's true. It was vocalized by Ms. Daniels, but the image is hard to get rid of.
She actually saw it.
Mm.
Oh my God.
Tales
That
from
woman
the
has
crypts.
suffered so much.
Whew.
Well, way to bring the mood down, Jake. Way to bring the mood
Well, we
way
can,
down.
And I know. But we were talking about love hotels and Nintendo. Love hotels are great. When you were in Japan, Leanne, did you go to one?
No, you know what? I was so curious though, because when I was looking, I have to say, just out of pure astonishment and respect, that the affordability of hotels is marvelous. You can get a room for $60 a night, and it's smaller than a standard American hotel room. But they have all of the furnishments that you would need. They have wonderful food. They have usually an onsen of some kind, and you can really relax, and it's all very, very clean. And I have to say I was very pleased. But I as I was looking on booking.com, because that was how I found all of my Japanese hotels for some reason, I found a love hotel that happened to be slightly more expensive, but also very affordable. And I'm like, wow, this looks like the Taj Mahal of hotel rooms. Why is it so affordable? And then I realized, it is a sex hotel.
Because it's covered in fluids.
No, they are so good. The staff are so good at changing those sheets over. Like,
You only get fluids on the sheets?
It looks so luxurious, though. It's very tempting.
Like these, the well-run ones, the ones that are like $100 for some you can have for the whole night. Some are like during the day, it's like 3 hours. Also, when I was a college student, I discovered what they have called sabisu time, meaning from 9 to 5, you can rent like a love hotel room for the whole day for like $30. and like I lived in a Zen Buddhist temple, so like it's not like I can have a girl in my room and like be screwing all night long or all day long. And also, I didn't have an air conditioner, so like I blew so much money on love hotels that I don't think economically it was that I really saved that much money by living in a monk's quarters. But I mean, it was fun, so. Because you wonder, like, how clean it is. So I got one of those blue ice ones, and I went over the thing. It's like nothing. I mean, they clean those places. I mean, you've seen how the Japanese bullet trains are. I mean, like,
there's no trash at
The
all.
Japanese take huge pride in their work.
It is so clean everywhere.
I mean, Matt, if we had time, if you come back to Japan, let's
when?
let's rent a love hotel room and let's take the.
You and I, Jake?
Let's all
Wait, whoa,
go.
Jake, whoa.
No.
Are you going to tell Jesse about this? Are you going to tell Jesse about this? That wasn't in the FaceTime, Jake. I appreciate your work, Jake. I'm not a star fucker like that. I'm sorry, Jake. I'm sorry to shoot you down on air like this. Like, I really would have preferred to have this conversation off air, Jake.
No,
I would have let you down a little kinder.
I didn't really mean like you and I would participate. I've been sort of like,
Backpedal, Jake. Backpedal.
well, like I was going to suggest me and Leanna, but if Jesse hears me
there
saying
we
like
go,
me and
there
Leanna
we
would go,
go.
she's going to be like, you, Leanna, love hotel? What is that all about?
What about
and then I'm going to learn why she has a black belt in karate. So no, so you're the safe bet, man.
It's
Am
true,
I
it's
the
true.
safe bet?
You're the safe
It was
bet.
only practical to make this decision.
Well, no, the practical would be like,
All
so
three
me,
of
Jesse,
us.
and Leanna would explore.
No,
That would be fine. The four of us.
Is all four of us.
Yeah, the four of
There
us.
we go. We all go. But no, I would totally go to Japan.
But we could get the
again.
CSI light, and I would tell you we would have found nothing.
I have
You
a
know what though? I was this close to going further into like Zen Buddhism training. I was this close. So it's crazy, but I went to a tea ceremony that was actually headed by a Buddhist monk. And so he taught us like a Zazen meditation, right? He gave us the pamphlets, how to fold our legs, both of our legs over, both of our feet over our thighs. It's a very specific crisscross method that
the lotus
you should be able to, in the lotus position, you should dislocate both of your feet somehow. I believe that is the only possible way because I can only get half lotus.
I can only do a half lotus.
I cannot do the full lotus. But after I spoke to him, I asked him because I felt like we only really had like about 5 to 10 minutes. Oh, are you trying the sour?
How are those?
They're
candies?
fine.
These are labeled because Japan is very much into sort of,
I had like 5
gender roles. This is otoku ume this is man plum blossoms. So they're considered more sour than any of the other ones.
That was not sour at all.
Can I? Since it's made for men, I feel like as a woman I should.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you with my.
We were listening to your Zen Buddhism story, and we were seriously.
So, and the meditation session only lasted for about 15 minutes.
I had 5 of them already.
Well,
and I felt
you're tougher than the rest, man. I find them like.
Oh well, I've been accused earlier today of having no taste buds, so that might be.
I felt so curious that I asked him, is there another Buddhist temple that I could go to meditate for longer? And they said, yes, here are the instructions. And he showed me, he's like, I'm going to call the temple and tell them that you're coming so that they can prepare a space for you.
That was nice.
It was so nice of him. I felt so appreciated. And so I immediately run over. Well, not run actually. In Japan, it's more like I very quickly, politely walked over to the temple. And I didn't want to make a scene, so I did not run. But I walked as quickly as I could. I go to the temple. I get change so that I can add my payment to enter into the temple.
Mm-mm.
And then I go in to meditate, and they prepared a separate room for just me, which was
really
very
nice
of them. And I meditated there, and I meditated for 2.5 hours. And then a lady comes in and she says, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but this room is actually required for another area, for another, like for a session of some sort. So we are going to take you into a different room. And they actually allowed me entrance into the private room of the temple that only the priests were allowed to meditate
The
in.
Jushoku.
And there was this beautiful old wooden Buddha that stood before me, and I was the only person in that room. And I meditated for another 2 hours, and they said they were very impressed that I stayed
I would
for that
be
long.
impressed.
It was very cold. It was like 40 degrees at the time, and there was, there's no air conditioning in the temples. It's all just very open to nature and to the environments. And I said my goodbyes, but it felt so spiritual, and I was this close to being like, can I just stay here?
I mean, there are many ways. I think the most common is you depending on the sect, is when you go to the head temple, you sort of stand outside for like days waiting to be admitted as a monk. And then you like do 2 years of basic torture. There's a good book about that called like, it's Eat, Pray, Love. And it was like Eat, Sit, Meditate or something like that. It was described by one person who went through that training period, and it just sounded horrible. And in my case, I had the same teacher for 30 years.
Wow.
So I got a letter of recommendation. I had to do a special training. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't do the 2 years, because I don't think I would have survived.
Wow.
Because the hazing is pretty horrible. I mean, it's gotten better. But,
Wait, monks haze?
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny because when I was in the tea ceremony, it's funny because when you meditate, you're supposed to keep an even line of focus. You can't move your eyes. You hood your eyes halfway. And in the center of non-focus, you stay very still. And if you need assistance to continue your focus, you give a little hand signal, and the monk comes in with a stick and he beats you with it over each shoulder. And he playfully beat all of us with the stick, but I know he was doing it really light. But he said, you're allowed to ask for me to hit you a little harder. And that's when I knew. I knew what
people
they
pay
were
good money for
playing at.
that.
They really like hitting you with the stick, and they will hit you as hard as they can.
Does this dude know how much it would cost to do a scene like that with you? Does that dude realize what the rates are on that?
I asked them to hit me, and it felt very nice, I will say, but I was like, in the mentality, I was like, I understand why they do this, because it really helps you focus, but also they just want to hit you.
I mean, they're bored. What else?
You don't say anything. It's very quiet.
You sit long enough, you really do get stiff shoulders. You got your hands in the hoin, this sort of right mudra, and eventually, yes, your shoulders get stiff, so it feels kind of nice. A shoulder massage would feel nicer. But I remember, like, like at AHG, when like doing the special training, we had to get up at 3 a.m. to start meditating. Like you go to bed at night, like 8 o'clock, they wake you up at 3, you're doing the meditation session. It's so cold. And I was like, before this trip, I was like, I bought like super thermal underwear,
The
like,
cold is very intense.
like from LL Bean or something, like for sub-zero temperatures. So I was like, everybody's freezing, people's teeth are chattering, and I'm like, am I a bad monk that I'm so? So I'm like, I'm warm, but
Should
I'm
I
like,
take my
but I'm like,
clothes
maybe it's
off?
kind of like an intelligence test, right?
Mm.
Like, are you smart enough to anticipate the future?
Well, that's an interesting balancing act. Are you smart enough to believe in God and smart enough to prepare for the future?
But also they have
Sorry, my atheism's coming.
Ooh, but they do have like Tibetan monks will meditate in the snow, and it's effective showing like if you can meditate in the snow and the
that's 'cause
snow
they do
rolls
that.
off your back. Right?
They do the inner heat thing, Tongkum Law.
So maybe they want you to like start preparing for that.
I guess. Well, I think the Harvard University did a study of those guys to see if they were actually able to warm themselves, and they can. Though I remember reading it was like so they measure these people and their ability to raise their temperature doing what is called the inner heat yoga, which is a Tibetan thing, and the monks are able to do it. But I was like, one point I was reading like and it was like rectal temperature. I was like this much. I was
Oh
like,
no!
I'm like,
they took the rectal temperature.
wow, I wonder how the monks felt about that. Like, okay, monk, we're going to take your rectal temperature here.
I mean, it's the most accurate way to do it. It's the most accurate.
I can just very clearly imagine a monk in the back of the temple being taken back, and they're like, okay, he lifts up the robes, and they just put the thermometer
You
in.
can't take him back. You can't take him away. Like, he'll cool off. You have to do it at the source.
Right. You're right. They have to do it immediately. Also, I have to say, as a woman, I sustain the gummies, and they are quite savory, actually.
Yeah, they're not sour.
Or it could be the alcohol. I am very unfortunately
Have you
inebriated.
tried this brand or?
No, I've never tried this brand.
I
I get it for my kids, but I'm like,
I am very
knock yourself out,
inebriated
kids.
at the
Like,
moment. I apologize.
Oh no.
Oh no, I almost took another sip of that. That would be a very bad idea.
That is your call. That is your call. I wanted to circle back on one thing about the love hotels with you, Leana.
Yep.
Did you have a chance to try to get laid in Japan?
No, so this is very funny. My closest fans know this about me, but I do not have sex off camera. I have only ever had sex on camera for porn.
I did
except
not
for
know that
once or
about you. I feel
twice.
like I should have read your Wikipedia page.
But yeah, you
failed
could
to
have
do
brought a
research.
camera to the love hotel.
I fantasized briefly about it, but also I feel like Japanese culture very much fits me because when I'm not Leana Lovings, I am so shy and reserved. I am more shy and reserved than I am on camera. And it is just so much, I'm sorry for existing. Like my first initial introduction to every single person that I met was, watashi wa, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm so drunk. I forgot the phrase.
Shy this.
Sorry. ごめんなさい。私はアメリカ人です which is a little bit redundant, but basically it's like, I'm sorry, I'm an American. And I just felt like, I needed to apologize to everyone if I was unprepared for the culture, if I was disrespectful in any way. And so I did not try to sleep with anyone. But I realized I gave some girls compliments, and just giving a girl a compliment is a very intense endeavor because I realized when I walked up to a girl, I looked up very in Japanese, like how to tell a girl that you appreciate their appearance or like how to tell a girl that they are attractive. And you realize it's something that is so intense and rarely done in Japan that it is almost like a confession. It's like a confession. So when I told the girl, she was so shy and she was smiling and
Did she
radiant.
start laughing?
She walked very quickly away. She giggled a little bit, but then she walked away as fast as she could. And I realized that I embarrassed her.
Yeah,
and I
you're a
felt
creep.
so bad. I know, I was a creep. I was perving on this beautiful girl. And I was like, oh no.
You'd say, Anato wa kirei desu, or something like that. I don't. Well, I mean, you could check into a love hotel by yourself because people do, but it's obviously much better with people.
Yes.
But the zoning regulations have really decimated the old school ones. So the ones that had like mirrors on the ceilings, these are actually pretty good. The ones that had mirrors on the
not
ceilings, on the
Yeah.
floor. Osaka had a Hello Kitty room, which Sanrio found out about, and it made them close down. And when I heard that was going to close it down, because I know someone at Sanrio, I rushed to go to the Hello Kitty room and have sex there once because it felt like so decadent, so wrong.
Love to have Hello Kitty watching me. I need her presence observing me in this most sacred union.
Would
of
you do that
bodies.
one off camera?
I would do that one off camera just because it's the Hello Kitty room. I feel like
is
you
kinda
would
special.
need to.
It is.
And there was one really good love hotel in Kabukicho, which had like a whole, like it still has them, like a whole line of Disney princess rental outfits, which are included with the rent. But somehow Disney must have found out because like they took it off the billboard. But at the time, I was like, wow, okay, this place has their, like not only are they a classy love hotel with the colored bathtubs, like they have bathtubs that light up with different colors, and a jacuzzi because that's kind of
The
mandatory.
jacuzzis are
But-
mandatory.
But the selection of costumes was just top notch.
Before I realized that place was a love hotel, because I was looking at booking.com, I was like, wow, they have a jacuzzi. That's so considerate. It's built into the room. And then I was like, wait, oh, this is a love hotel. The opulence, it was just too opulent to be a normal hotel. That was when I realized, but the reviews did all comment on how clean it was. And I will say also, you know how you were talking about how the chimes occur around 5 p.m.
Right,
or
right.
so, around certain hours? The only time that I remember hearing that was when I was in Yugawara. So I stayed in Yugawara because it's kind of an onsen town.
Mm-hmm.
And historically, it was actually the only town that was available to traders and people from other countries. Because the rest of Japan was shut off. They were worried about the influence that other people from other countries would have on Japan. And so I was very appreciative of visiting there, but it's so very set in their own old ways because it's very out of the way of everything else. I had like a 6-course meal or like a 10-course meal that was in the ryokan that I stayed.
Oh yeah. Ryokans
Very
are really
traditional ryokan. It was very lovely, but I'll never forget being able to walk along the river and go into a forest that also had a secret onsen at the end of the 3-mile walk, which was fascinating and very lovely. But for anyone that's visiting Japan, I really do recommend at least visiting Yugawara once, even though it is a little bit out of the way.
No nonsense for me.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, because you have tattoos, it is less of an issue than it used to be.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Because in 2016, some guys, I don't think you've ever heard the story. My audience has definitely heard the story. So when I was there in 2016, I was there with my tattoo artist, and he is friends with a bunch of local tattooers in Tokyo. It turns out they're all low-level Yakuza guys because that's the only way you get into being a tattoo artist at the time.
At the time, probably, yeah.
Yeah. And they scored one of my buddy's weed, and that was the funniest fucking situation ever. Because my idiot friend, who's just a total stoner, was like, "Can you guys get me weed?" And they're like, "Yeah." He met them at a hotel. They're like, "Here's a dime bag. Do not take the train back to your hotel. Take a cab. If you are caught with this, say nothing to the police. Call this number." Like, that is the most impressive deal on a dime bag I've ever heard of. But they're like, "Oh, we got an onsen you guys can go to with us." And we're like, Yakuza onsen seems like a horrible plan. Like, I feel like we'll owe favors and I don't want to do it.
It's not a bad plan. So technically speaking, like there are public baths that are also onsen. So like the onsen in my neighborhood is a public bath, but they have spring water. So it is also an onsen. But because Yakuza have to bathe too, they cannot forbid people with tattoos from using a public bath. So there's a public bath / onsen across from the Chinese embassy full of Yakuza. I mean, you can go. You probably meet some interesting friends.
The placement of that is very funny, though.
Yeah, I know. Next to the Chinese embassy. right?
Yes, that is hilarious.
Hokkaido has long sort of turned a blind eye to it. And there's increasingly a lot of places. Because, the days when tattoo irezumi equals Yakuza a past. I mean, lots of people getting tattoos. And as Japan is like, okay, we need that tourism dollar. The yen has been really devalued. They're less and less enforcing those rules.
See, I'm traumatized from my first trip in 2013 where we were kicked out of at least 12 different places because of tattoos.
Yeah, I know. That is really frustrating. I'm really glad that I never got a tattoo. And I certainly knew the people to get a tattoo from. But I was kind of actually, I know there's one Yakuza boss and his son, who he definitely didn't want to go into the Yakuza, became a hairdresser. And for his son's 16th birthday, he tattooed Pikachu on the kid's ass. His son was, and my son his son is gay too. And he's like, I just had this vision of Yakuza being kind of conservative. I'm like, you tattooed Pikachu on your son's ass, and and he's like, yeah, I know he's gay. I don't want him to go in the Yakuza. And he's like, what do you think? Do you like, that because I'm in the Yakuza that I'm not okay with gay people? Like, gay are fine. He's a hairdresser. Like when he said he wanted to be a hairdresser, I knew he was never going to be Yakuza. Fine,
Yeah, we were legitimately just, oh my God, we're rejected in so many places, and that's just always stuck with me on every trip.
My grandparents are very Jewish, very horrified by the idea of tattoos. It's like you should never desecrate your body, and I'm like I always thought about it. No offense, Matt, but my feeling was always kind of like I would never wear the same shirt every day for the rest of my life. So why would I put something on my body I can never take off?
That is exactly my reason, though.
Refute me on that because
I'll refute you on it because once you have them for a while, you tend to forget about them. Like they're just there. Like it's just like everyday inventory your birthmarks.
I just to see if the moles have gotten any bigger, but yeah, that's that.
Yeah, it's like that. After a while, like the first couple of weeks while it's healing, it's like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, I got a new tattoo. And then eventually you're just like, oh yeah, I have that tattoo. Like I forget about the one on my left shoulder blade all the time.
I am very, I'm both ways when it comes to tattoos. I would not get a tattoo just because I feel very similar to you in that I am very fickle. I'm mercurial. I would change my concept of what I would want. I would never be satisfied with any specific image. I would rather paint on my body, But what are you pointing at?
Oh, I have a counterpoint whenever you're done.
Oh, okay. But I thought you were telling me to drink.
No, this is a self-service show, Leana Lovings. Drink as much or as little as you want.
But
at some point I have to do the Japanese thing and pour alcohol in your thing. I know it'll be off mic, but I feel like it would be improper for me not to pour your booze at least once during this show.
Good luck. Oh, but as I was saying, for tattoos, I would say in some ways I could almost see a tattoo as placing symbolism on my body. If it were a temple, it's like adding a story, adding a spell in some sort of very magical, sacred way to my body. It would have to be in a very hidden place that no one else could see, and it would have to be very secret that I never.
I hate to break you, you're naked on the internet. There's not many hidden places.
No. See, I've thought about this. I know where I could put it where no one could see it. You could probably get a tattoo on your scalp in a place that no one could see because no one's really looking very closely.
Yeah, but you'll have to shave your head
first. Oh,
you can wear a hat for a while.
You could hide a very small patch.
I know a psychotic drummer that did that. Got a tattoo on his head. He was psychotic, but
as you said.
You are true, though. I am very much naked all of the time, so it would be near.
Well, not all the time. You have clothes on right now. For the audio audience.
Do I, though?
Leana Lovings has clothes on right now.
Do I?
Are you trying to get Jake in trouble? Are you trying to get Jake in trouble?
No, I'm totally just saying perception is not always reality.
The reality of the situation is I'm not trying to get Jake shanked when he gets back to Japan. Leana has her clothes on.
Turn into the YouTube version.
My clothes are present. Oh, I forgot that this was a podcast and not all of it is on video.
It's true. It's a podcast.
For the video viewers, you can see that I'm clothed, but see the podcast.
Or I did good post work.
It's a mystery. I could be doing
I am totally naked, which is why
you would never know.
It's very cold.
It's very cold.
Exactly.
Well, on the tattoo front, the other point I'd like to make is I've used tattoos also as a reminder of where I was at the time when I got it.
Yes.
So it was like one of these tattoos I got I'm not thrilled with the tattoo. It's a bad tattoo, but I got it while I was stuck in Miami for 6 months on a gig.
Mm-hmm. What was the gig?
Oh, it was when I was still working for the armored car company.
Oh,
They sent me to Miami because Miami was fucking up.
Oh.
wow.
So I was stuck there for 6 months, and I'd be like, I want a tattoo.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah. I just also wanna.
So, So, my parents are also kind of, my sisters got tattoos and my parents were not charmed. So the Italian version of Tokyo Vice came out and the cover is like of this, tattooed, this guy sort of sitting down with a tattooed back. And the back of his head looks exactly like mine. So it was like delivered to my parents and they're like, we got the Italian version. And my father got on the phone. He's like, son, is there something that you've been meaning to tell us? And I sensed immediately that he didn't want to ask, but that he was kind of horrified. And I said, and he says, because we have the Italian edition here. And I said, no, there's nothing I want to tell you, Pop. But I don't have Hep C or anything. And it was like 3 or 4 years later, like we were like, I was at the house and I was, hopping into the shower and he's like, oh my God, I'm so glad that your back isn't covered in tattoos. And I was like, did you really think I would? He was like, do you have any, like, Pop? He's like, do you have any idea how painful and how long it would take to have my back entirely tatted? And I'm like, and he's like, I have no idea at all. And I'm like, haven't you read my books? And he's like, never. I've never read your books, son. But that's okay because he listened to the podcast. So
well, and that's also very common for family not to actually support your art.
I mean, he was
they
like,
might support it and buy it, but they might not read it. I think that would make sense because not everyone intends. I'm just adjusting in my seat, But I would love to talk about how we met and where we met in Japan. Are we allowed to?
Of course, be my guest.
Hey, okay. So Matt actually introduced us while I was visiting Japan.
That's my fault.
It's not your fault.
It's all.
I would have never met you if it
fault.
hadn't been for Sherry.
I got a text from my publicist that said, hey, Matt knows someone in Japan while you're going to be there. I was going to be there for 2 weeks. And during that opportunity, we found the ability to meet in Tokyo. And we had a drink. And it was amazing to be able to meet you. I felt so thrilled and excited. But what really confused and excited me further was like, hey, would you like to go on this adventure with me to a deeper part of the city late at night to work on a documentary?
Oh yeah, the French documentary Dark Tokyo.
About it? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we're doing this documentary. It's only been aired in France, in which I was hired to look for 2 different people. I ended up taking both of the jobs pro bono because I can afford to. And we were going to go to a club where I thought this girl had been working at least once before. This college student disappeared. And I was thinking, it would be so much more convincing to show up with someone who is young and attractive and who looks like they belong in the club. 'Cause I certainly don't. So I dragged her along for that. And then it was like Club V or something.
Yes.
As a giant, massive disco, actually run by this guy who I used to know when he was a mixed martial arts dude. It was really crazy to see him running this club because I always thought of him as like this kind of thick-headed bouncer.
And it was one of the best clubs in the city. And it had pictures of American celebrities that had visited there with their signatures.
And the music was actually pretty good.
It was really good. There were bottle service workers that were shooting out tins of confetti, gold and silver, as it rained from the sky down onto this beautiful stage of equally beautiful people. And I remember you telling me that in Japan, the party reaches its height at midnight and it goes on until 5 in the morning.
That's because the trains stop running after
Yep.
midnight, right? So the dedicated party people are like the ones who go out on the first train and stay until 5 in the morning. And I believe as we were walking through the crowd, I ran into a fling of sorts, and I hadn't seen her for a long time. And by this time, I'd had some booze because we're on this thing. I almost rarely drink these days, and I got so close to just out of habit to lip locking, and I was like, "Holy fuck! Wow, that would have been the end of my existence on this earth." I was like, "This is why I don't drink and why I don't go into these places." It was like a nice waking up.
Jake, no one's going to take advantage of you here.
I know.
It's okay.
I know.
It's okay. This
I
is a
trust
safe
all of you.
space.
Good. It's a safe
Especially
space.
you, Matt.
Well, just because I shot you down on air earlier.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Emphatically shot you
True.
down.
It solidifies that sense of safety.
And now that I know that Leana only has sex on camera, we don't
There's
really have a
cameras
camera,
right here.
But,
Exactly.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's
4K. In 4K.
true. That's true.
We can get a 2257. What's your status, Jake?
no.
Start that OF career right now.
It'll be a sad career because my sweetheart will dump my ass so fast.
But you know what? Also, after the club, which was so fascinating because you showed me a picture of Michael Jackson shaking hands.
With the Yakuza boss.
Yes.
I can send that picture to you later.
Oh my goodness, it's insane. I didn't think that it was real, but I realized it was absolutely without a doubt.
Yeah, Michael
real.
Jackson's manager, he was studying karate with this sort of fixer in Japan. I think he's the head of the World Karate Federation. And of course, he is Yakuza connected. So when Michael Jackson came to Japan, he took him out to dinner. And so there's this wonderful picture of Michael Jackson, this famous fixer. And then there's the head of the Sumiyoshi Kai next to him. And I recognize the head of the Sumiyoshi Kai because I also have a picture of the head of the Sumiyoshi Kai with the vice chairman of Japan's Olympic Committee at one point in time. It's like everybody connects. Yeah, that was a really fun shoot. And actually, I found the people that I was looking for.
Oh, I'm so happy. I've been waiting to ask you about the results of your investigation.
So the college student basically, I think, had issues with her mother who was very over-controlling.
Oh.
And I mean, I was able to assure mother, like, your daughter is safe, but I think she just wants to be on her own. And the other guy, the Yakuza who was missing, I'm not going to get into his privacy. I found out why he was missing. And I told him, like, dude, everybody thinks you're dead. Only a few of us know what you actually do. So, like, put up a fucking Facebook post so that people know that you're alive. Because you haven't put up one since, like, February, and people are concerned.
I am
Can you please, can you please put some people at ease? Because despite how down you are on yourself, some people, especially who we know from college, actually give a shit about you, and we want to know that you're alive. So that was a happy ending.
That makes me so glad that it was a happy ending on both ends, no matter how complex the story, how intense it was.
We ended up having dinner. Well, we were supposed to meet up for dinner, but he got thrown in jail for about 23 days.
Oh, no.
But then when he got out of jail, he contacted me. Then we had dinner at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan, and we had a very nice talk because he's like 56, I'm 55. And he was kind of like, hey, it's like, hey, dude, like, my boss is really rising up in the organization. I could score you an exclusive interview with him. And I was like, no, thank you. He was like, what? I'm like, do you know? Like, do you know my boss, man? Like, my boss, like, he's way up there in the hierarchy. I was like, I know who your boss is, and I know he's way up in the hierarchy. But it's like, but I've interviewed a lot of Yakuza in my life, and I understand your boss is powerful, but there's not an upside for me because it's not like he can really talk about how you make money. And I ask really tough questions. And if I offend him, if the interview doesn't go well, then I've got a whole world of hurt to deal with. You lose face, I lose face. I'm like, I'm just going to pass. I appreciate your offer. I'm going to pass on it. And then he was like, I get it, man. And so he showed me. This is how he speaks. He's like, dude, check out my bitch, man. She's so hot. And I'm like, I am so happy for you. Your female companion is quite lovely, and I am glad that you are getting along with her. He's like, yeah. I mean, and he told me, he kind of has no filter left anymore. But as we were talking, he's like, so, like, I see you this hot chick that you're with, and like on your Facebook page, like, when are you gonna have me over for dinner, man? And I'm like, I am never having you over for dinner. And he's like, never. And I'm like, dude, you is still in the Yakuza, and like, I am not. Like, I am avoiding that world. She told me, no Yakuza at the house. Absolutely not. And I am holding up to that position. We can meet in public now and then, but you are not coming over to the house until you leave the organization. And if I were you, I would get out soon, man, because you aren't getting any younger and the business isn't getting any easier.
How do people get out?
Easy. You stop paying your association dues.
Is it really that easy?
It's that easy.
Wow, you have association dues.
Franchise.
Well, I mean, all organized.
Frat.
Well,
Yeah.
Wow, when I think about it, it's a frat.
all organized crime, like you kick up to your boss. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But
Unless you are the big boss.
right.
Then there's no
when
one
you're
else
at
nowhere else
the
to
when
go.
you're at the top of the pyramid, yeah, everyone kicks up to you. But all organized crime, that's how it works. They kick up to the people above them. But in most American organized crimes, you're not allowed to just leave if you stop paying.
First of all, if they try and stop you, it's a penalty under the Japanese law, and you can be prosecuted.
Wow.
So the chopping off of the finger, which is one thing that people used to do when they got in trouble,
They don't
or
do
someone
it anymore.
below them got in trouble. Like, I think there's this myth that I'm leaving the Yakuza, I have to leave a finger behind. That's really not the case. It's you fucked up so badly that if you don't cough up your finger, you're going to get kicked out of the Yakuza, then you lose your meal ticket. Or maybe you're going to get killed. So that chopping off of the little finger and putting it in a white cloth and giving it to your boss is a sign of repentance and atonement. And if he accepts it, then your debt is cleared. And that is called in the Yakuza world a shiniyubi, a dead finger. Now, if you chop off your finger, but say like your brother in the organization or even your boss or your friend has screwed up so badly that they're in real deep trouble, like so much trouble that they might get kicked out or they might get killed. And you go to the person who they have wronged and you say like, here, please accept this token of my apology on behalf of so-and-so. That is called a living finger, an ikiyubi, and that is considered very honorable. And in the world of the Yakuza, of course, if you look at someone's hand, all you see is they're missing a finger. But it's so much like giant junior high school, like Yakuza junior high school, that everybody knows. Oh, that guy, he fucked up. He lost a finger. Oh, that guy, like he gave up a finger for his brother.
Wow.
So what happens to people that are kicked out? Like, what is their life at that point?
Horrible. I mean, because it's very hard for them to be employed.
Yeah.
If you aren't excommunicated formally, which is like a fax sent to the police and to the other organizations.
Wow.
Sorry, my nose gets stuffed up here. It can take 5 years for you to be able to qualify for welfare or open a bank account. It's really hard. So a lot of them commit suicide. A lot of them, some of them commit petty crimes just to go to jail where they at least can have a place to sleep and have, a meal. So Japan is very bad at rehabilitating the Yakuza. I mean, so they've set a system that pushes them out of the business, but makes it very hard for them to rehabilitate.
That's wild. Like, I'm so used to American crime where it's like, no, the only way out is a body bag.
Yeah.
No. I have a distant relative who was considered one of the last living members of the Jewish mafia, and he got out with no problem.
Well, yeah, he's one of the last living members.
Wow.
There's
the
not much of an
Jewish
organization.
mafia, that's
There's not much of an organization to come after him at that point.
Good point. Well, the Jews got out, the Italians stayed. I mean, I could paraphrase what I heard from a distant relative, but then I'd be slurring the Italians. But anyway, the Jews got out.
Well, they did.
And you can, it is not hard to leave the mafia. And if they try and hold you back, these days you get in trouble. So often what will happen is, nowadays, if you do the finger ritual and you chop off your finger and you take it to your boss, he'll probably be really angry at you. He might accept it, but then he'll immediately tell you to go to an emergency room and get it reattached. But so he doesn't get arrested for assault, because that is how it can work. If if the police make the case that you chopped off your finger to please your boss, then that makes an accessory to assault. Now, really recently, there was a really bizarre case of a guy who chopped off his finger in atonement for something. He went to the hospital and got it fixed. And then he was charged for insurance fraud because Japanese medical health insurance, which is public, does not pay out for cases of self-mutilation.
Wow. That is so unusual and fascinating.
But the one good thing, I guess, about the unexpected perk of chopping off your finger, and most of them say like, I slammed it in a car door, or like, it got run over, or whatever and it's not like the doctors are going to interrogate you. Is that often you can qualify for handicapped parking? So I guess there is a plus to it.
Wow.
I just had a vision of a Yakuza meeting somewhere, and it's all handicap placards. I also realized one other possible benefit of losing your pinky is it's a new hand to masturbate with. It's kind of like you're missing a finger, so it's a different grip.
Sensation's different.
It's a different grip.
I'll have to ask someone who has experience.
Well, because it's a new hand.
I mean, it might be a different sensation, I guess.
It's got to be a little different.
Maybe they just use the other hand.
But-
Maybe they start using the other hand because they would want more, more coverage.
That would be horrible. Like, please don't take the finger from this hand because that's the one I used to.
Now, if you okay, so the oyabun, like literally means father figure in and that's your boss, that's your father in the organization. Now, the thumb in Japanese is called the oyayubi, like the father finger. So if you fuck your boss's mistress or his wife, then the penalty traditionally was said that you had to chop off your thumb if you got caught. Because oyayubi, right? You've wronged.
That would
another
just be a very
superstitious thing is if a
decision.
Yakuza sees a hearse, they hide their thumb because it's like you're protecting your father from death. Like it's a weird superstition. But I've never seen a Yakuza who didn't have his thumb. But I don't even know if it's an urban myth. But if you spend 30 years covering the Yakuza, you all hear about it. Like oh yeah, the guy that lost his thumb because he fucked the boss's mistress. You're like, that's a high price to pay.
I feel like they just murder you on that.
Rare man indeed.
I think before you get murdered, you offer up your thumb. You know you're going to get caught or something, or they give you that option, and then you bear then you bear that mark of shame for the rest of your life.
And your video game playing goes way downhill.
Yeah, I definitely think it's harder to do. A lot of things you couldn't do without a thumb.
Yeah, the thumb is so necessary. I mean, a lot of people say that extra finger is really what exemplifies humans. Having 5 fingers.
But, I mean,
opposable thumbs are just so useful for so many.
That's why the raccoons
tools.
are going to take over the world. That's how I feel.
Exactly.
Tori Peebs, if you're ever listening to this, you and your raccoons, you're going to inherit the world.
And cats with extra fingers.
Yeah. But you're supposed to only do the first joint, like not down to here.
Oh.
But I mean, a lot of people, the tip of your pinky, but people fuck it up too because they get carried away.
Oh, yeah. And, aiming, maybe they're just so emotional that they go a little bit further by accident.
You really need 2 people to do it, right?
Yeah.
You need preferably like a cutting board and a sashimi knife and a rubber band and maybe a hammer.
A hammer?
Yeah, it's really hard to sever a finger. You're supposed to put it face up. I think like you watch in the movies, it's like face down.
Right.
Face up. First you put the rubber band around it because you don't want to bleed all over the place.
Right.
Then you wait till it's numb. Then you get the sashimi knife, sashimi
because it's so sharp
right there, and then you either have a cutting board under it, or if you don't have or you maybe use another cutting board, then somebody has to pound it, and then you turn over the finger and you finish severing it. You wrap it in a handkerchief, and then you take it to the person you've wronged and you offer it to them.
I suppose it makes sense that you might need a hammer because you can't exactly get a clean cut. You would want to be close for like precision instead of going further because
you want it to be clean, and then after it's done, a lot of them go to the hospital to get it stitched up because otherwise you get like that phantom finger syndrome going on. But but like I said, these days, because it's such, it could involve your boss in a criminal case. They will
might
encourage
be
you to
more angry at you.
Yeah, encourage you to go to the hospital and get it fixed.
Yeah.
And the reason you chop off the little finger is because in the days when swordsmanship was important,
you wouldn't be
you
able to
weaken
grip
yourself.
the sword.
You can't grip the sword as well.
Successfully.
The days of when swordsmanship was important. You're saying swordsmanship isn't important now, Jake?
It still is important because the gun laws are so odious that if you have a gun and you fire it, you're almost guaranteed for like 25 years to life. The gun laws in Japan are crazy. So even the Yakuza avoid them. So if you need to kill someone, a sword is a better bet because, like in that documentary we saw tonight, right? There was the Takigaki-san, who I really like. He's an ex-Yakuza who's now like, trying to rehabilitate Yakuza. He was like, he showed his sword and he said, if I killed myself, I would use this. And he's like, well, why not a gun? Because if I used a gun and I didn't kill myself, then I'd go to jail for like the rest of my life. Because firing a gun, like owning a gun is a crime. Having a bullet that matches the gun is a crime. Firing the gun is another crime. I mean, they just keep throwing things on you. That's why Japan had, in 2021, the number of gunshot deaths for a nation of 122 million people was one person.
They also criminalized seppuku, though, because it was so prevalent at one point in time, right?
I mean, it's hard to put a dead person in prison, but yeah, I mean, they discouraged the practice.
Well, I don't know if you heard about this. A couple of years back, a stupid American accidentally brought a handgun into his carry-on from Atlanta to, I think it was Narita.
No, I don't know the story.
This is what I hate about American media. So him fucking up and doing this was covered. There was never any follow-up about it.
Ah.
And he realized, like, mid-flight that he had fucked up and accidentally left his gun in his bag. In his like carry-on and like told them. But he's still landing at Narita with a fucking loaded gun in a fucking plane. And I never heard a follow-up on it.
I am guessing that since he turned himself in, that there was prosecutorial discretion and they just said, like, we're not going to indict this guy.
Well, hopefully they just send his ass right back. I mean, probably they just send his ass right back to the States, but.
Yeah. I mean, so there has been a resurgence. Like there's been this long war between the Yamaguchi-gumi was the largest organized crime group. It split on August 27th, 2015. I remember these things. I cannot remember my mother's birthday, but I can tell you when the Yamaguchi-gumi was split.
No, but that's so true. Also, like my memory is very similar. I'm very bad with just people's names. I can't remember people's names. I'll remember their faces, but I could remember some things.
Leanna, this is Jake.
Who are you? No.
I know you're Leanna. I signed a book for you now. I'll never forget.
Yes, I'm very grateful that you signed this book.
This episode is not sponsored. We're just doing this.
Just for fun. No, I just put this up there because I thought it would be really funny to make it look like it was sponsored.
Leanna, if I
but I did that entirely for free.
If I knew one of your movies, I would now plug it, but I don't.
It's probably a good thing that
do you have a feature film like this? Like
actually, it just came out. I did the red carpet for it 3 days ago. It's called Birth.
Birth.
Yes.
Are you actually giving birth in the film?
So a different character is giving birth. That's the actor, the very well-versed actor, Casey Calvert and Seth Gamble, and I am the lead supporting actress. And she's pregnant, and I am the doula.
What's a doula?
A doula is a midwife that is helping someone give birth. So while I'm having sex with her husband, her water breaks. And I then help her give birth. And I cannot spoil the end because it is both traumatic and dramatic. But
what company produced this? Adult
Time. I'm the ambassador for Adult Time presently.
That sounds like an intensely like scripted movie.
It was very scripted. I spent a month getting my character into perspective for me. And I met with Seth Gamble and the director and writer Bree Mills to figure out what our character relationship was. I wasn't allowed to meet Casey Calver until we had our scene finished. Like we had to do everything separate so that it was as awkward as possible. And I designed all of my personal costumes for that film on my own. I looked into what my character was. I did so much research on traditional wife and very religious doula perspectives because my character was supposed to be very, very conservative, religious in perspective, that I made sure that everything was down to a T. But it was very rewarding being able to see it as traumatizing as it must have been.
But doesn't the doula feel bad about having sex with the husband? I mean, isn't that kind of a violation of what the doula is supposed to do? Isn't she not supposed to be doulaing the husband?
Oh, I really don't want to spoil
Okay, all right,
it, but I will say she very firmly believes that in order to create a happy family, she has to adhere to what she believes is the will of God and what destiny is for her. And with her being unable to have children, she believes that there are certain signs from God that He has given her that she should follow in order to fulfill her role in life as a woman.
You know, speaking of not being able to have children, I got dumped like 3 times in my life because I am barren. I had chemotherapy in 2011, like a year of, I think, 2 different kinds, also in the book. Not in great detail because I don't think people need to know everything about your struggles or whatever. I mean, you do it and you're done. But, you know, I have, over the years, 3 times I've been dating someone, it's been going really well. And, you know, and you get serious and they're like, I would like to have kids someday. And I'm like,
That's not first date conversation for you?
No, with Jesse.
By the way,
with Jesse,
I am
my
barren.
sweetheart. First date. It was going really well. I was like, I am really attracted to this woman.
Oh.
Like I told her, like, as we were at the dinner table, like, I hope my kids never listen to this. We were at Cafe 8, my favorite Chinese restaurant. I really like it. It's out of business now because it had this. Not only is the Peking duck the best in Tokyo, it closed down last year.
I'm so envious.
But it has over the central table this giant penis in Christmas lights next to a giant bell with the vulva engraved into it.
No!
The whole restaurant was full of this phallic imagery. Right?
It's amazing.
It was so amazing.
Why?
I have to send you the picture. They went out of business because of real estate consolidation. But they also had in the corner the testicle fortune telling shrine. They had like 5 golden penises of various heights, and then a little and you put in 100 yen, and then you could pull out your fortune.
I feel like it should have been my destiny to get my fortune read from this device.
So when I went there on their last night, because this was the first date I ever had with my sweetheart. We went to this restaurant, and when they heard they were closing, we went there on our last night with like 10 friends. And as I was getting ready to leave, they said to me, Jake-san, kimi no kane wa iranai. Joren kyaku dakara. And the kore saigo dakara. So they didn't charge me anything. We all ate for free. Then a couple of months later, Nishimura-san, who was like one of the managers, he wrote me like on Instagram. And I almost missed it because it was like in the other mailbox. And it was like, hey Jake, like, that fortune telling penis shrine we had, like we really don't know where to store it and we don't know what to do with it. Would you like it? And I was like, I would absolutely love to have it. Like, you can send it to me COD. Like, no, not necessary. Just tell me where you want it. So I gave them my address of our second home in the outskirts of Kyoto, and they sent it to us. And it's this is like beautiful red shrine with a platform. They're not really gold; they're gold painted penises. And in this Japanese house, there's a tokonoma, which is kind of this alcove where you put family paintings or like a Buddhist shrine. And because it's this old house with this kind of plaster wall that has gold flakes embedded in it, it is such an absolute perfect match for the fortune telling. The testicle fortune telling. So it occupies this place of honor on the second floor. There's even like a little light you can turn on so it lights up. And there's a little
That's amazing.
restaurant. It was the most lovely gift I've ever received.
I would love to ask if you could, from far away, send me a fortune. If you could get a fortune
Yes,
for
I
me
can.
from
I
it.
will. I will. You will give me a quarter or something today, and I'll.
Thank
I gave you a
you.
quarter.
Yes.
There's your quarter.
All right. All right.
There's the
I'll get you-
quarter.
I'll take out a fortune for you, and then I'll send
Thank
it to
you.
you.
I'm buying Leanna's fortune.
Done.
Thank
done,
you.
Done. But what was the point?
But
of
you
that?
told Jesse on the first date.
So
Yes,
the
yes,
first,
yes.
on the first date, I met Jessie. I didn't know anything about her except that
How did you meet Jesse, by the way?
Bumble. So I saw
Bumble? So
Be
she,
right
Bumble.
back.
I saw her Bumble profile.
right back.
She told me that she had just moved her Bumble profile from like 38 to 60 because she was having trouble meeting men that were interesting. And I had just turned mine down from like from I think I had it like 30 to 60. So she
oh,
was
you're going to date older?
What?
You were going to date older?
Of course I date older. I'm like not discriminatory.
Oh.
I don't have like a young girl thing.
The-
But I was,
older.
but I was like, I'm like, at by that time, what's with this? Like, I was like 49 or something. I don't want to date someone in their 20s, not just because the optics are bad, but because
Oh,
we
it's
have little in
exhausting.
common.
It's exhausting.
It's a little exhausting.
I know. I still do it occasionally. It's exhausting.
There was a time in my life when I did too, but I saw and so Bumble is like one of these things, like so her profile picture was of like her in this baggy karate gi doing karate, and then her snowboarding and her skateboarding. And I'm like, okay, this is someone who likes physical activity. She said that she did Kyokushin karate and she had a black belt, and there was some jokes made there, and I could tell that English wasn't her first language. But every picture she's smiling and she's like, and looking very happy. And I'm like, this just seems like just a charming person, like upbeat and cheerful. And I did karate, so at least we have that in common. So on super likes, if you've ever used Bumble, you can pay money for like a super like, which sort of moves you to the head of the thing. I had like one super like left. I mean, at the time I was probably dating 4 people. Yeah.
Playa.
Well, I mean, it's the pandemic, man.
So you had 2 living with you.
Yeah, and it was the pandemic, and none of us were in committed relationships, and I had the antibody, so I sort of felt, like invulnerable, right? I am probably one of the only people who put on their Tinder profile their antibody reading, which was like, hey, I can't give you COVID, and that means I can get you groceries and I can give you a massage. I think that was my tagline.
Perfect.
And it worked very well. So, and it said her height was 180 centimeters, and I was like, that's so substantially taller than I am. And I'm like, but I can probably bridge that gap. And I put my height as 173. I'm actually 174. So it's like 5 foot. Like if on a good day, maybe I'm 5'10". I'm closer to 5'9". But
It's okay. Everyone's the same height horizontally.
I guess true. So I put my height down shorter than it was because I'd rather under promise and over deliver, right? Isn't that a better strategy?
In most cases, yes.
Yeah. So, I showed up to meet her and she's like actually 181 centimeters. Like, wow, this is a tall woman. And I think she was relieved to find out that I wasn't really short. So we went on a first date. It is going off great. She tells me, brutally honest about her whole life, about her first marriage. We're having a great time. We're at this restaurant. There's just us because it's still the pandemic. So there's like nobody there. We have like the whole place to ourselves. It felt like I'd rented out the whole place. And I said, like I'm like 49 and this doesn't happen that often to me when you get my age. But as I'm talking to you, like to quote the Bible, I feel a stirring in my loins, and you're just amazing. So maybe this is really premature, but I'm going to ask you because this keeps becoming an issue. Do you want children? And she's like, fuck no. She's like, I am the 6th of like 7 siblings. I have raised children. Like I have raised my sisters and brothers. Like there is no way on earth I want to ever have a kid. I'm like, great, because I can't give you any. we're off to a wonderful start.
Excellent. I think that's a first date move. For me, I just send them a YouTube video of me getting a vasectomy. Like, here's a link in case you question it.
By our third date, oh God, I so hope my kids don't listen to this. No, they'll never listen to this. Because I hope. So by our third date, I was like, look, I can't get you pregnant. Let's be monogamous. Because, we're certainly enjoying the sex, and I'm running out of condoms. Let's do it raw. I'm like, let's go to an STD clinic and get tested, you and me, and let's take our dating apps off our phone. And I don't think there's anything in the modern world of dating that says, I love you more than I am going to take my dating apps off the phone in front of you. You do the same. And so,
no, that is the power move.
I think that is so appreciative because it shows that you're respecting another person's boundaries. It is a great form of communication. And I know that I just magically reappeared from the aether to say this to you, but I have very much respect for how you communicated that with her. And I think that more people should do that because it's a very healthy way of helping someone feel comfortable, especially in an environment with dating apps where people have a suspicion of like, well, how have they deleted it yet? What does it mean if they still have it on their phone, even if they forget about it?
I mean, if you're really into the person and and you like the way they smell, you love the way they smell, you should know, you should either commit or get, or go away. I mean, sometimes it takes longer, but if you feel that it's time to take the dating off, you can't keep thinking you can keep upgrading. That's really conceited.
Well, yeah.
People aren't properties you can trade up.
People think about
that's dating in LA though. That is so dating in LA. Everyone's like, oh, I could definitely do better.
Oh, geez.
No,
you're a multimillionaire. I could definitely do better.
No, I was like, we are a wonderful fit, and also, I seem like someone who takes risks, but I'm actually very risk adverse. If we're going to be having unprotected sex, we're both going to need to be monogamous. So we deleted our dating apps from our phones. Then we went to the STD clinic and we got tested, and we were in such a good mood that one of the nurses came up to me and she was like, "Excuse me, what is going on? Because we never see a happy couple here. Why are you here?"
Wait a minute. Do people not get tested in Japan regularly?
Japan has a really high rate of chlamydia and venereal
So they
disease.
would probably be very sad if
that's what I'm getting at.
Like they suspected it.
Japan, know your status. Fucking get tested more often. Jesus Christ, don't wait till your piss is weird. Porno colds aren't that big of a deal, but don't wait.
Good advice, which Japan should heed. And we told that to the nurse, and they were like, I don't know where they gave us. They gave us they gave me some little towel set.
Oh, that's so cute.
Here, your test will be back in a week.
Well, that makes me feel good that I've only had sex with Australians in Japan.
Because you can go down under.
No, that is just how the hookup happened. There was not a premeditated, I'm going to bang Australians. It was, I met an Australian girl in a fucking bar and who was also on vacation, and that just happened.
And we waited a week, and then we were both clean, and we have stayed in a lovely monogamous relationship, and it is so nice to have a libido match.
It is.
Because it's after 4 years, sometimes we have to take a vacation because, you get a little worn out, overdo it.
Do you need me to send you American lube?
No. Actually, one of the reasons that I always when I'm going back from St. Louis, and I always pick the same hotel to stay at, is the Renaissance Inn on the airport, because it is, first of all, it is next to a Waffle House, and my God, I love Waffle House. I know it's so Laurent, but there's nothing like cheesy grits and gravy and the hash browns and the waffles with the butter on them, and a side of bacon.
I miss Waffle House so much.
Oh, it's so good.
They still have Waffle Houses in Florida.
They have them in a lot of places. Where I'm not going to Florida to go to Waffle House, Lana.
But
you cannot lure me to Florida.
You're saying that you wouldn't go all the way to Florida to return to the sacred holy land that is Waffle House?
I could just go to Phoenix, Arizona. They just there.
Yeah.
Oh, what a shame! But then you'd be in Phoenix, Arizona.
I don't want to be there either, but that's a drive versus a flight.
There's a Waffle House in Columbia, Missouri, so I could go there. But in this,
Not when you were home?
But on the way back, it's like I need my biscuits and gravy. I need the waffle. I need the whole smorgasbord. We discovered when we went back when we came here to do the Evaporated podcast, me and Choco and Amy, Waffle House, in the one that we go to in St. Louis, actually closes at 11:30 at night.
What the fuck? A Waffle House that closes?
It closes at 11:30, and it only and you can only get takeout, which was horribly disappointing.
Oh,
Because
A Waffle House cannot be like allowed to get room temperature.
no. No,
there's a
no.
microwave in the
No. No,
No,
it
that
needs to
would
come
be
from
a
the grill
sin.
to your fucking
a
plate.
sin unto
I know.
man.
So, but anyway, at least I got to go to some. And the other thing that I love about it is it's across the street from Hustler Hollywood.
They
So
have
whenever I go
amazing waffles.
before I go home, I always go to Waffle House and I always go to Hustler Hollywood and I get some good American lube,
There you go.
There you go.
water soluble.
Well, speaking of good American
it's
lube,
part of a healthy American diet.
It's true. I mean, I
Lube
can't,
and
I couldn't eat Waffle
waffles.
House. But the other thing that's great about this Waffle
Sometimes
House,
you need the lube with the waffle. The waffle down. You know?
that's what maple syrup is.
That's the
Leanna.
maple syrup.
That is what maple syrup is.
It's
That
not
is
real.
true. It's
That is
just
waffle lube.
it's-
sugary throat
It's
lube.
not real maple syrup, but it's still delicious. I
Mm.
mean,
You know what? There is
Allow me to live in my fucking fantasy, Jake. Why do you have to ruin everything?
I'm just
why,
saying, Matt,
Jake?
you should know that it's not real maple.
Why would you ruin this for me? Why?
There is, by the
I bring
way,
my own maple syrup.
chocolate flavored lube. You could probably just put that over a waffle, and it would be the
probably
same thing.
if it would probably taste like a on a Waffle House waffle would be okay.
Yeah, I think that we should do an
I'm still
experiment.
traumatized that Jake is just broken. It's not real.
It's Mrs. It's like
Sorry,
Mrs.
Matt.
Butterworth. That wasn't real maple syrup either.
Oh, but it was so good.
And I believe that Mrs. Butterworth has been retired because she's no longer politically correct. But
Oh, that's true. No, Aunt Jemima was retired,
so was Mrs. Butterworth.
and Mrs.
Butterworth
Butterworth
just had some
wow.
cakes. She was on
She
a racial
had-
stereotype.
Oh,
She
yes.
just had some cakes.
No,
She had
she-
some dark
is gone.
secrets.
So was Aunt Jemima. What is also really good about when we're on the Waffle House Rift, it reminded me of something.
I have.
No, that was earlier.
Them not being open all night is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, well, and that's what I hate about a lot of the post-pandemic world is so many 24-hour places no longer being 24.
They've closed their hours because
Yeah,
they
it's like
realized it shortens
excuse me,
things.
like please reopen Waffle House. It's 24 hours because that's the whole joy of being there at 3 a.m. Oh, here's my Waffle House story. I almost forgot. This is one of my proudest moments in my life. I would go to Waffle House with my dad a lot. And he would be like, the waffles are great, but the syrup is cold. And it would be so much better if the syrup was warmed up. And sometimes he'd ask them to warm it up, and sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't.
Interesting.
So I wrote to Waffle House a letter like, hey, Waffle House guys, you should heat up your syrup because it would be so much better and the butter melts better. And I got a reply from Waffle House.
No.
And they were like, that is a great idea. We will try doing it at some of our restaurants. And they sent me like 2 free Waffle House dinner coupons.
That is
And
amazing.
for a while they were doing it, and then one day they stopped because maybe if you heat up the syrup, something happens. But
that
I was
probably
I mean,
that's
is
how you
get
real.
cancer.
I'm
but
very
I was
sure
so
that-
delighted to actually get a reply from Waffle House and get 2 free meals, and then to actually go to Waffle House and have someone bring out heated syrup. And I
That
felt
is
like I
amazing.
had made a huge
you
contribution to
changed the world
for a
You
short time.
influenced them, but also I will say they probably changed it because of bacterial
Yeah,
presence.
I think
like
that was the problem.
reheating the syrup opens it up to bacterial growth.
That's how you boil it.
I'm sorry, I just had a very visceral reaction to
I mean, you don't serve it
Boil
boiling. You don't serve it boiling. You boil it and then bring it.
imagine you take just the whole plastic bottle of syrup and you put it
Well, that's
in
why
a
you-
boiling pot.
No, glass. That's why you use glass.
Oh, but then how do you calculate exactly how much syrup you need? Because you're either going to have too much or too little, and either way you're going to be
Eyeball that shit.
disappointed unless you drink the rest of the syrup in a desperate desire to finish it.
I mean, the thing about Waffle House is when they go there, you want to go when it's like when it's like around 4 or 5 in the afternoon when no one is there,
Mm.
and they bring you your waffles, it's piping hot because there's no one else, and then you have like this magic window of opportunity to smother the butter
Yes.
on there and pour the room warm temperature maple syrup on it, and it's just perfect.
Jake, I have a pro tip for you. Just carry a lighter with you, and you can just take a lighter to the syrup. Eat it yourself.
That sounds very well. No, because the heat wouldn't radiate to the top enough. It would just burn through the plastic.
Speaking
because
of
of the
speaking of
proximity.
lighters and lighting things on fire, have you
Ooh.
ever been to Trader Vic's?
Yeah.
Have you ever ordered the flaming grog, or is this only something that happens in Tokyo?
No, I have not.
So they make this coffee liqueur drink, and when they bring it to your table and they serve it in like an Easter Island cup in Tokyo, but probably horribly inappropriate now, and they light it on fire and then they like stir it up and then they pour the lighted, like the flaming coffee into your cup. It is such a thrill. And sometimes if they're not crowded, they'll pour it back in and do it a couple times. And then you have this like wonderful alcoholic coffee drink, and it's just such a thrill to drink something that has just been on fire.
Yes. I feel that way about hot sake. I feel like it's fire inside of my chest, like I'm drinking pure
Oh, it is
fire.
really good when it's hot, but to actually have a drink that is
Something
just been
that's
flaming,
actual on fire.
yeah, it is a thrill.
The
It
visuals.
must be good for the gram.
Yeah, it's definitely good for the gram.
Yes,
And that's what we're all about here. We're just about things that are good for the gram.
apparently. Yeah.
You know, my daughter forbid me to have a public Instagram for like 3 years. She was in high school. I posted this photo. There's this giant fetish like masquerade ball
Oh,
once a
no.
month in Tokyo at a location which I'm not
Once a month.
once a month on the first Saturday of every month. I'm not going to disclose it to your listeners because I want to go not without being bothered by the. By
You're
the
going to tell
foreign
me off
hordes.
air, right? You're going to tell me.
Off air, of course. I'll tell Leanna too.
Thank
Well,
you so
I'm not
much.
worried about Leanna.
I would appreciate that.
But they hold it in an abandoned theater. They not abandoned but an old theater. They don't have a liquor license, so you have to buy your booze at the 7-Eleven.
Oh.
I got a lot of practice in doing it. I have a lot of practice in doing that.
But it is such. But so they have like you can get tied up and you can get
What?
tattoos and pierced. They have sort of like booths, right? So I took a picture of this guy getting like whipped, and I posted it on my Instagram. And then I got this like note from Benny, who must have been like still in high school. She's like, Dad, like your Instagram, my friends see it, and it's so offensive and full of sexual content and violence that I am horribly embarrassed. Could you please make it private? And I was like, Benny, the title of the account is Tokyo Vice. It's not Tokyo Nice. Like, of course it's going to have some offensive stuff on there. It's like, that's like my trademark. And she's like, well, you should make like a Finsta. Or I didn't think the Finsta word existed at the time. Like, you should make your own one for your friends. But I am embarrassed because my friends are following you. Please, if you love me and don't want to embarrass me, make it private.
Oh no.
And then screen out my friends. And so I did. And so years went by. And and every now and then she would be like, hey, Dad, I just checked and your Instagram account is still private. Good on you. I guess you can keep your word.
See, this is a teachable moment as a father to be like, oh, you shouldn't live your life by other people's opinions.
I don't know. I think it's a great
This
idea
is
that he
this is like a
respected
building
his
trust
daughter's
moment with your
boundaries.
daughter. Like, okay.
Well, this is why I don't have children. This is exactly why I don't have children. Be like, no. Their opinions don't fucking matter.
And the
Great that you
vasectomy, that's
can
a properly
establish-
Well, yes.
You could establish that bond of trust with your daughter.
So years go by, and then Tokyo Vice airs, right?
Oh.
Tokyo Vice airs, and through the usual process of compliments and negotiation and pretty much blackmail, I get the kids flown over for the premiere. So they're on their way to Japan. I'm like, Benny, the TV series is going on the air. Like, HBO has, would love to have this Instagram account because it's the name of the show, but I have kept it. And I'm like, can I please make it public? Because it's a great chance to promote the book and the TV series and my works. And she's like, yes, you've been wonderful about keeping your word. Would you
Oh.
please make another private account and not post my pictures on this account? I'm like, done. So, that has been good.
That's wonderful. You really opened up an opportunity for yourself by having the name of the social before the show so that they then had to buy it off of you. That was technically very forward thinking.
I also bought the tokyonoir.com URL before the book came out because I'm like, should. I'm just like, I just don't want it showing up somewhere else. So that was smart.
It was, because I had such plans for it.
I know.
I know you would have, Matt. I know you would have.
Wow, I'm getting ganged up on by the guests.
Have you trademarked And Now We Drink?
I played the 5th at the moment.
Okay.
By the time this episode airs.
No, it takes a year. It takes a year. Over a year at least, to trademark something in the States.
Oh, no. Whoops.
So, no, it's not trademarked, but I could definitely show that it has been used in commerce for quite some time.
It is such a lovely, evocative title. And Now We Drink.
And now
we drink.
Well, and what's wild is there was a food blog that was using it before me.
Wow.
Very defunct. Like defunct at the time I started it.
Mm.
And that's why it's in Now We Drink _ on Instagram, because she has @ Now We Drink on Instagram.
Wow.
Oh.
And you know what? It's crazy because in the history of people that have accounts, sometimes you have a very similar idea to someone else and their idea doesn't entirely go to fruition and yours does and becomes longer standing. It becomes a point of contention between the accounts on who gives up what name. And
Oh, no, I fucked up. She offered me the account for $300 7 years ago. And at this point, I doubt I could get it from her that cheap.
Oh, no. I'm
don't
sure
know.
if
You
you
might
go
try.
with contrition, maybe.
I'm sure I'm fine. I have the SEO. If you type in And Now We Drink into Google, this face is what pops up.
Exactly.
I've stopped
matters.
using Google. I use either Bing or I use ChatGPT.
Interesting.
Or I use this app called Perplexity because Google is so shit. I mean, it's so shit as a journalist. I'm like, I would rather pop it into Bing because it'll give me the sources where it's from. So at least,
it's reliable.
well, it's more reliable.
More reliable.
It's easier to check. It hasn't been SEO'd out the wazoo by Google, so you get better results.
Yes.
But of course, the problem with the internet is everything is behind a paywall. So increasingly, to get useful information, you have to pay on top of what you originally started for. It's not very helpful.
I wish that what's really frustrating, by the way, is that it's the misleading and unreliable information that is free on the internet that
Like Fox
people have
Shots fired.
to. That people have access to, and therefore they find themselves in the wrong direction in the pursuit of knowledge because I don't like that there's a paywall for information that should be available, because if people have a thirst to learn, they should be able to. And
Well,
I know
this is-
every company has a desire for profit.
Well, this is where
Capitalism has made its point, but also people have the right to learn, and they should know better, because if we're looking for people that are more educated, I'm sorry, I'm like, you could take over.
I'm not taking over.
Okay.
I
But I am saying, people should be able to be more educated without the cost of any certain thing, especially with the low amount of money that people get regarding minimum wage. Are they really going to spend an extra couple bucks when they could be spending that on food, on groceries,
I mean, it's
on gas?
I hate getting the like you've exhausted your free reads of the New York Times this month, and I'm like,
Right?
I understand. Like, I'm a journalist too, right? I
And
want
if you
people to pay.
happen to afford an iPhone, you can use that little cheap little cheat that allows you to read the letters that gets through the paywall. But you have to have an iPhone to do that. Not every model of the phone is going to be doing that. And that's still a form of paywall.
Well, you
Well,
can't.
it's where print media fucked up. Because print media, when the web became prevalent, was giving it away at first.
Yeah.
So people got used to being like, oh, I can get these things for free. And then we're like, oh, hey, our actual physical media, vanished. No one's fucking paying for it. And they're like, oh, well, now we're going to have to pay all this shit. No one wants to fucking pay for it because they were getting it for free for so fucking long.
The whole goal of the internet was for
I mean,
information to be
it
accessible.
happens all the time now. Every time Jesse and I have sex and I have to pay like, $100, I'm just like, what happened, honey? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just wondering where that $100 goes.
As every fully consenting relationship does, you pay them $100.
Of course. I mean, you start for free, right?
Yes.
Get them hooked.
Yeah.
You should have kept it in yen.
Subscription model really has the best
Terrible
discounts.
thing.
Why would you do it in USD? That's such a bad plan. That's what the world trades on.
Right, with the degrading of the yen, you can really...
It gets back because she always converts it into vagina coin. So, there we are.
There we go.
It's a kind of cryptocurrency.
Oh, I was going to see. Wait a minute, Jake, are you trying to pump and dump?
Oh!
Sorry. That joke was just there.
Isn't there an old really sexist joke about marriage or something like that? It's like, why would you pay for the cow when you get the milk for free or something?
Yes, I'm sure that.
that is an old saying.
exists.
What is the actual joke? I am too.
I don't think it's a joke.
I am very inebriated. I tried. I at some point during this interview, I stood up to use the restroom, and I realized that I could not walk, and I kind of wobbled.
Here's to
and
being a
what's
weak
funny?
drinker.
Because-
Cheers, kampai. Oh, are you still have anything in your glass?
Kampai. But you know what's crazy?
I've drank this much whiskey, and I'm fine.
I told you I could drink myself under the table. It was true. I lose every time. It's just
You definitely would lose.
I can talk very fluidly, very eloquently, but I am very wibbly wobbly with my legs, and they don't work.
I can't remember the joke though, but there is some.
Well, I don't think it's a joke as so much as why should I pay the cow when I get the milk for free? Is a kind of a warning for women to like, oh hey,
don't have sex with somebody until
because
you get married or something,
right? Because they're just gonna fuck you.
That is the stupid ass thing in the world. Like, would
it
you buy a
is.
car without test driving it? No.
I mean,
Exactly.
to be fair, Jake,
Exactly.
the very wealthy do. The very wealthy buy supercars because they just expect quality.
Yeah.
They just put their money down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
but then
I'm
they
speaking
get
from,
disappointed, and then they just add it to their collection and never drive it because they're either worried about ruining it or they get very worried about the fact that they just don't like it.
Oh no, I'm blue collar. I drive.
Never make sex a tradable part of the economy. It should never be something
No.
to barting. It's its own thing. It's the glue that binds.
But sex is one of the oldest professions in the history of man.
It is true.
Hmm.
So you said that you only have sex when it's on camera.
Yes.
I mean, is it more enjoyable that way, or is it just kind of a principle at this point in life?
It's funny because I like the idea that I'm recording this story for my fans. I like that it's something that my following can follow with me and join me with. It's such a personal journey, but also it's like there's a team of people that's always there, and every performer is always tested every 2 weeks. There's a rigorous amount of safety that's involved. You always communicate very thoroughly because consent is very sexy.
But Leanna,
Know
you could have
what
sex
you
with a performer
like.
off camera.
Oh, that's always a possibility, but then you get paid for it.
I mean,
If it's in front of a camera, right? It's so versatile because
I hate to break it to you, people pay for people to have sex off camera. I hate to break that to you.
I would be way too
I don't know if
shy.
this is breaking news for you, but that has happened before.
I would be way too shy to do something like that. I know.
I'm not suggesting you should. I'm just breaking this news to you.
Well, let me share you something that I only hinted at in Tokyo Vice.
Yeah.
But someone at the BBC picked up when they interviewed me. There's a lot of embarrassing thing in the first book because this Yakuza boss hired a private detective agency to dig up my life. Because I think he was going to, once he realized he couldn't stop the book, I think he was going to try and blackmail me into doing it. So I found, and one of my friends said, like, hey, this guy came up and he talked to me. So I got the business card and I called the detective and I said to him 3 things. I said, first of all, I have a camera on my premises and I have a picture of you entering my property. So if I want to go to the police,
Ooh.
you are committing invasion of property. So you go to jail. So the second thing is you can tell your boss that every dumbass thing I've ever done in my life, and I'm putting in this book, I have nothing that I'm ashamed of. So investigate all you want because I'm putting it all out there. So he can go fuck himself. And then I was like, okay, now I got to put it in the book. But I'm like, okay, but I don't have to put it in great detail. So in the book, like there's like this one line about like how in college I like worked as a massage therapist to earn my last year of tuition because I didn't want to be spending all my time teaching English. And that was true. But she kind of picked up on it. And it was like, so what were you doing as a massage therapist? What did this involve? And I said, well, it involved, I actually did take a class in Swedish massage in high school. I do have the lowest level of license you have. And there were some wealthy doctor's wife and some other people, and I was massaging once a week. And sometimes that would include sexual massage, and sometimes that include vaginal penetration, but not necessarily always. And she
You do
just
it with your fingers?
and sometimes actual full penetration,
Oh.
but not always because they're paying for a massage and that was extra. So I'm not necessarily violating Japan's rules about prostitution.
Of course.
You were in love.
of course.
No, I wasn't in love.
Oh, it's not like Soap Land where you end up in love in the next room?
If it was in a so planned establishment, and I'll tell you, I mean, I picked the client, and they would leave money on the table, and it wasn't
Oh.
always, and it was very kind of in that very Japanese way, and I didn't really have a
So it
girlfriend.
was on a little tray?
They put it in a nice envelope, not on a tray, like in an envelope.
so
It was always being like envelope.
lovely.
It was like sammanen for 75 minutes. That's like, I guess, was close to $300 at the time. And sometimes they'd fall asleep.
While you're inside them? That's
No.
depressing, Jake. That is fucking depressing. Wow.
I don't think they fell asleep while I was inside them. Something just because it's a good massage should make you fall asleep. It shouldn't necessarily turn you on. And my apologies to real masseuse therapists out there. I mean, that's how it started.
With
And it
real
was good.
massage therapists, I can very much fall asleep.
And it was good money. And instead of having to go all across the town, I worked Mondays and Tuesdays. And I asked for an advance. So if they canceled on me, I would substitute another day, but I always had the money guaranteed. And so when I finally started like seeing somebody, and we were having sex, there was this kind of like, I remember like waking up once and being like, why isn't there money on the table? Like, where's my envelope?
Oh, that is
I'm
very
like, okay.
funny.
I'm like, maybe, I'm like, I'm certainly enjoying this. So I was just like,
You're like, oh wait, I didn't get paid for this.
I mean, and I certainly
You did it pro bono.
I did it pro bono. And because if you give someone a massage, you get the same oxytocin dose that you get from 5 minutes of human contact. I mean, that's very well
Yes.
documented, right? So giving someone a massage, if you like the person, is a tremendously soothing thing in of itself. And if you're not crazy in love with them, but you're mildly attracted to them, the sex is quite pleasant as well. So I was just it was kind of interesting to be in that relationship and then sort of be in a non-relationship. And I was I didn't make me want to have sex any less, but I was kind of like, it's a little bit nicer when you get paid.
Wow, I am the least sex worker at the table. Fuck.
And
I didn't know.
Very fascinating, though. That is so fascinating.
and I had some asshole journalist like I can't believe that you talk in your books about having these relationships with women, and I don't believe any of it. And I'm like, would you like to ask some of the women? Because I can give you them numbers. And I was like, dude, I am sorry that you are ugly and balding, but look at these fingers, dude.
They were young and spry.
Was young and spry. And now I am I'm happily in a relationship with someone who's my libido match. So what more could you ask for in life?
Not much. Hell, you commented on the clip I posted. You cleaned up my words a little.
I did. I thought I would share some wisdom there. I think my father gave me some really good advice, which was like, when you're looking for a partner, you want someone who is happy 80% of the time, without you, meaning like before they met you, without them in their life. You want them to be happy 80% of the time because that makes because a happy person is such a general person to be with, and you want them to like to have sex with you. And I'm like, if you have those two factors together, and they're nice to other people, you have like the perfect match. And I was like, you're right, Dad. I think this is probably a headier topic than usual on And We Now Drink. There is there is a guy named Steinberg, I'm probably getting them wrong, who formulated what he's called the triangle theory of love. So perfect love is when you have equal measure on both sides of passion, intimacy, and commitment.
Oh.
So passion is you're got the fucking hots for each other. You know, your pheromones are telling you, breed, you guys will have perfect children. You have, you know, your immunological characteristics so different that you smell great to them, they smell great to you. That's the love at first sight. And then the commitment is like whatever that commitment is. Like, okay, we're in an open relationship. We're going to tell each other who we are. Or like, it's just going to be you, me, and my girlfriend, or whatever that is. And then the intimacy is you are honest with each other. You share your secrets with each other, and you trust each other, right? And so when you have all three of those, you have perfect love. But I've been in Japan so long, I have more of a theory of like the perfect square of love, which is reciprocity. So you do something nice for the person, and they do something nice for you. You don't have to ask for it, but they do. So you have all those things. You've got like the perfect love. That's the perfect square. But the hardest one is the pheromone thing. Because sometimes you meet someone and you hit it off great. You know, like you have the same interest. You laugh together. You love spending time with them. But the sex just isn't there. And if that's not there, then you have a friendship, but you don't have a romance. And like during the pandemic, I met like one woman online. I had such a lovely time with her. Like we got along so great. We laughed together. You know, really connected on many levels. But when we got to have sex, her pussy smelled so bad, and I just the smell of her like sweat was so like awful to me. And I thought maybe she's ill or something. Maybe we could wait. But I just never felt that attraction because the smell was such a turnoff.
How many times did you test that theory?
3 times.
Okay.
With the same person?
Same person.
Yeah.
Well, it just, I had to ask.
For sure.
Yeah. But, but with Jesse was like love at first smell. And then the conversation and then everything else followed. But it's the nose knows more than anything else. So when you meet that person and you get a whiff and you're like, wow, like just the smell of you turns you on. That's a great one. But that's also really hard to find. Because as my friend Mari Yamamoto said to me, she said, your problem is that you what you're attracted to is crazy. You smell crazy and then you're all over it.
Is that a Jewish thing? Because I'm there too.
It is true. It is true. I definitely
3 out of 3 Jews in the building agree with this.
It's like
oh my.
You smell crazy. I'm totally attracted to you. Like you're absolutely bad news. But when I get your scent, I'm like I'm there.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just like
unfortunately have no experience in
sometimes it's just like, oh, I gotta do this for the bit. Like I just have to see this through just to see where it goes.
Actually, the greatest bit of advice that I ever got about that is having dinner with Mari and her sister, Kaori. And I was dating this incredibly attractive model. I'm not really into blondes, but like really drop dead gorgeous, but also really crazy and horrendously jealous.
Oh.
And so Mari's like, look, I cannot keep working with you. She stalks me. She, when we meet, she creates scenes. It's like, I'm sorry, it's really stressful and I can't keep doing it. I'm like, I know. I'm trying to work it out. And I'm like, but she's so goddamn beautiful.
I know, that's the worst. That's the worst. It's just like, I will overlook so much shit because you're fucking gorgeous.
She's the sex. And like, Mari, I know you hate it when I talk anything about like my sex life, but the sex is so good and she's so damn beautiful. And her little sister pipes up and she says, you know what, Jake? Beauty fades, but crazy stays.
You know,
So
from,
true. It's so true.
And I
mouth
was
of
like,
babes.
you're right. And then I broke up. I broke up with her.
from the mouth of babes, you have to say it. You know.
So
It
true.
was like one of the most. It was like having a Zen master tell you something. It was like my eyes were open. You're right.
Sometimes the young ones have the right idea on things.
I had to admit that was true.
Yeah.
I know that's true. I know that in my heart of hearts, that's true. Doesn't stop me sometimes. Really doesn't.
I mean, I would like to think. What does they say? This is some Buddhist saying. Some people having many gray hairs does not make a man wise. Some people grow old in vain. But I would like to think that I have grown wiser. So I am like crazy. No, thank you.
See, Jake, I've grown wiser.
Oh, also, no more Scorpios. I dated 3 Scorpios. 2 of them had the same birthday, and the other one was very close. And I have learned, having been stung by Scorpios so many times, I'm like, never again. Never will I be stung by a Scorpio again. It took a lifetime, but I have learned.
Yes.
No offense to Scorpios out there. You're lovely people. You just,
little offense.
Oof.
Well, but I've grown wiser. I'm consciously making the decision now instead of blindly going. Like I just know what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, you're crazy. It's on.
I think that is a kind of wisdom.
Yeah,
I know this will end badly, but yet I am doing it anyway.
exactly. Like I'm here for a good time, not necessarily a long time. So,
Oh, but by the third Scorpio that had this birthday, like when she told me, I was like, you know what? I don't think this is going to work out. I was like, you're a fascinating person, really interesting. And like, what did I do wrong? I'm like, nothing. It's me. It's not you. It's me.
It's you.
Astrological sign.
It's you when your parents decide to have unprotected sex.
Yeah.
Blame your parents.
What is your star sign? Not that I really believe in this stuff, but I am curious.
What do you think it is?
Taurus?
Oh.
I'm an Aquarius.
What is it? What is the birthday of Aquarius?
February 9th.
February 9th. Oh, okay. So let's see. Oh, so Jessie's an Aquarius. She's the first Aquarius I ever
Jake,
dated.
I'm still not going to fuck you.
You know what? Oh, gosh darn it. You beat me to it. I was going to say, do you know what that means? It means you totally could have gotten
No, I'm going to continue to shoot him down on it.
You totally
We're
could
never-
have
it's
gotten
never gonna
married.
It's never going to happen.
It was almost meant to be.
I had all these Aquarius friends, like all my close female friends are Aquarius, but I never dated an Aquarius.
Jake,
So it was kind of good.
I'm a dude.
I know you're a dude.
Okay. Just
So Leanna,
in
what are
case you
you?
were confused.
What are you?
I'm a Gemini. And I know that sounds very strange. There's a lot of superstition around
Would
the
you like to
concept
defend
of a
yourself?
Gemini.
Gemini.
Yes. Yes. I
Okay.
would like to say that I'm not crazy. The image of the Gemini is usually like that it's split personalities or split selves. I'm not really an astrological believer. I don't really
when is your
believe in
birthday?
astrology.
Because I don't even know what a Gemini is on the chart. I just know I avoid
It's
them.
in May usually.
It's around like mine's in the June area.
So are
Late
you
May,
like?
early June.
Are you in the first deacon or the second deacon?
What's
'Cause,
the
so
deacon?
apparently every astrological sign is divided into 10 deacons, like a 10-day period.
Oh.
The more you are in the first deacon, the stronger you personify your astrological sign.
Oh. So
So-
what, the first 10 days you said?
Yeah, the first 10 days put you.
Oh, I'm closer to the second deacon then.
Okay, so you're probably a modified Gemini.
Yeah.
Like I'm an Aries in the first deacon, and there's this book that came out in the 70s, like Sun Sign Personality Guides. So I read it to my friend Shannon the other day, and she was like, "It's so horrible, and it's so right." Because it's like if you're Aries in the first deacon, which is like the god of war, it's like you have to be the leader in everything you do. You will step on anyone in your way without apologizing to get what you think needs to be done. Like you are a gangster out for a kill. You come on strong and you don't take no for an answer.
No, Jake, I'm not fucking you.
God damn it. I'm losing my Aries magic.
He was playing it so gently.
That was not gentle. He's like, I'm going to take you to a love hotel, Matt, next time you're in Tokyo. You're going to be isolated from your
Yeah,
friends.
but you're gonna have to shave the beard because I got really sensitive skin, man.
I'm just saying, it was not subtle. Like, hey, we're going to isolate you from your friends, take you to this love hotel.
So, You know, whatever has a hole, that's what you come out of Missouri, right? You know, anything with a hole.
I thought they didn't approve of that type.
Okay, let me ask you.
Let
Let me ask you a personal question.
Of
You
course.
don't have to answer this. Have you ever been with someone who identified as a trans man?
No.
I was during the pandemic, and I was like, can I just call you by your first name? Because I'm so bad with the pronouns. Whatever makes you happy. But
So it was a female to male?
no, born a female, but identified as a man.
So, yeah, it's female to male.
Female to male.
Female to male.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean, it was a lot of fun, and the sex was great. But I'm just like, you know, if you want to dress like a guy, I'm okay with that. Whatever you want to do, whatever makes
You guys share clothes?
sometimes.
Good on
But
you.
but I ran into Jesse, and I'm like, I politely ended it with a letter like, can we downgrade this to not downgrade? Can we dial this down to being friends?
Bro, can we
Not
be
go
cool?
over well. It did not go over well.
I mean, it's another dude. Be like, bro, can we be cool?
That's what I should have tried. I did sort of take it tone like, hey, dude, like, you know, it has been great, but I'm like, I met this woman. I'm really into her. We're gonna go monogamous relationship. So I hope you're not upset, but I'm like, let's dial this back to being just buds. And was not taken well.
That sucks.
Mm.
I feel like I'm too much of a breast man to go for.
I have never been fascinated by breasts. I don't know what it is. It's just. I always thought the guys who were fascinated by breasts had never been properly breastfed or something.
I'll have to ask my mother.
It just doesn't do anything for me. I mean, completely uninterested.
Well, hey,
You should ask your mom, like, did I latch?
she listens to this on occasion.
How
so-
good was the latch?
And the other thing, I know that you shouldn't think of partners as like investments. I'm just like, eventually they'll sag. Like, small.
I live in Los Angeles, sir. There are plastic surgeons plentiful. Science will make sure that they never have to sag unless we don't fall into a lower tax bracket.
That is true. It can all be done. But I'm just like, it's just never been my thing. I never understood why guys are like excited by big boobs. Like the first,
I don't know why it is. It just happens.
the first serious, girlfriend I ever had. She had like huge gazonkers, and like so we're,
Gazonkers
I didn't know. I don't know what I'm doing. We're in bed. I've never had sex before. This is before the internet, so I don't even know. I didn't even seen porn. So I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. But like once I touched her boobs, I was expecting something kind of firm, and they were just kind of like,
Yeah, they're bags of fat.
but it was just kind of like, ooh, and I'm like this isn't what I expected.
Breasts have different consistency though.
Yeah,
because
of course,
some
of
are
course.
extra firm naturally, and then some are very soft.
This was like squeezing like a plastic bag full of water.
If there was a row of women with, there should be a row of women in a museum with
I agree.
a variety of lengths and tension in their breasts, different firmness that you can compare from pillow soft to rocks.
But
I'm sorry, I see the look on your face, but I'm just thinking about it from a scientific perspective, from a sensory perspective.
Leana,
how about you?
are we really talking science here? Or are we just talking about what you want to do this weekend?
I'm sorry.
But I mean, in your experience, haven't you ever felt breasts and you're kind of like, ooh, like this? The textual sensation isn't.
I'm a very texture-oriented person, so
I'm always
I
happy to be in the
certainly
game.
have my preferences.
I guess I have a preference, and I like.
Oh no, I have preferences, but I'm always happy to be in the game. Like, oh, hey, there's tits that are like consensually want me to play with them. Cool.
It's like you pick up a book, right? You pick up a book and you expect the book to feel like, if you pick up a book and it feels like a beanbag, you're surprised. So that's how I felt. I was
Sometimes, yeah, but so it depends on who that beanbag's attached to.
Anyway, I was never really fascinated by
Interesting.
boobs. I'm like, what can you do with them?
Put them in your mouth.
I'm okay, but then what? I mean, it's
Well, the reaction to you putting them in your mouth
The way that
generally
you
goes
say,
well.
the way that you ask, what can you do with them, though, makes me feel like you're expecting them to be a Swiss Army knife, and I don't think that breasts were made for that kind of utility.
of course. Of course, it's part of foreplay and all those things, but it's just kind of like it's just never been something. I'm like, what is the obsession with big breasts? Like, what?
It's definitely like it's definitely the oral stage of development. If you looked at Freud, the stages of development at a certain point, you get oral fixations, and maybe that's just
and there's also
mouth to breast.
Obviously, it's part of the figure and they're attractive. I just don't understand like why guys go so nuts for a girl with big boobs.
Jake.
I mean, it's like I don't understand. I don't like football either, but
it's also a societal thing because big breasts are valued by parts of society. So it is a test of a dude to be like, I landed this girl with big tits. Look at me. It's a status symbol too. It's fucked up, but it's a status symbol.
If you looked at ancient symbols of fertility, by the way, like statues that were made of fertility goddesses, the symbol of pure fertility and best sex that was worshipped by people was statues with very large, voluptuous breasts because it was a sign of fertility, very large, wide body and hips and thighs that were efficient for birthing. And I think that a lot of it is also very corely rooted in our core desires as a people. For babies.
Maybe. I mean, that is sort of the fertile symbol of the thing. But I don't really have a body type. I just know that I've never thought that. I've just never been like, oh, there's a girl with big boobs. Wow. Like,
I've felt that though.
You felt that.
I felt that.
That you've saw a woman with big boobs and you're like,
well, sometimes girls are very familiar with other girls, and so sometimes you hug each other, and if a girl with large boobs hugs you and your face just is at the right height that it just settles right in between the cleft, I unfortunately must say they're just as soft as pillows.
Leana, are you saying unfortunate? Are you really saying unfortunately?
No, I'm sarcastically saying.
Actually, yes. If I was hugging someone and my face was in between their breasts, then I might find that very enticing. So, okay.
I did.
Horizontally, that could still happen for you.
I used to feel very unfortunate with my height because sometimes I would go to hug guys and my face was at the height of their crotch. I was a very short person growing up, so, that was just my height, and I'm just like, this is a little awkward, I don't know how to hug around you.
I'm pretty sure Shaq's penis is bigger than
It's my whole height, actually.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing.
That is terrifying.
That would make for a great video, though.
It might be a great visually. I'm not sure how much that would be great for you to actually do.
You know what? I have a lot of spirit, and I think that if I go into it with an open mind...
Spirit doesn't account for mass. Like, there's still physical matter that has to be displaced.
Anything can happen if you believe enough, Matt.
I mean, that's your job to believe in that.
It is my job to believe in it, and I believe that I could make it happen.
Well, then let's DM slide Shaq right now.
Everything is possible.
Let's find Shaq right now and
just DM slide him. When we can DM slide him on air.
There we go. There was
you have enough followers that he may respond to that.
Recently, where Shaq was posing with a girl very promiscuously. If you heard about that,
professional athletes having sex with people.
I am not really. I'm like up on my Shaq gossip. So
I wasn't either, but I'm just. Professional athletes having sex with people never happens.
No, never, because they're focused on their sports.
Exactly.
Yes.
They don't have time to have orgasms.
Balls.
Yeah, they're only concentrated on the balls.
Unfortunately, yes. It's very
balls.
The balls.
Hand-eye coordination, too many balls in their faces, balls in their hands, balls on the floor, balls in the air. It's too much.
See, that's the clip that we got to be worried about being taken out of context.
Do you watch sports at all?
So my family, I'm Puerto Rican.
Okay.
On the main side, and my family was very into like wrestling and boxing. So I watch wrestling and boxing a little bit with my family. But
rest in peace, Bruiser Brody.
That's about it.
He was stabbed to death in Puerto Rico. Sorry.
No.
It's a 1970s wrestling trivia, like just non sequitur.
So awful. That's so awful.
That is awful.
Yeah.
Brutal history.
I don't know anything about wrestling. I do know that this guy named the real MVP, who was in one of these world wrestling things. He came to Japan. He spent some time in prison, and we really got along. So I sort of follow his career because he seems like a great guy. But never been interested in sports. I have no idea. Like someone was wearing like a hat at the book thing.
I know, that was hilarious. That was fucking hilarious. Like, is that what his hat is that? It's like a Dodgers hat. Jake is just trying to decipher in like 10 questions on what the hat was.
Because it's like this black hat with LA on it. It looked really cool. I don't give a shit, so I don't know.
Sports hat branding is great, but then you want to get interested in the sport just so that you can wear the merchandise.
No, I'm down with being a poser at times.
I'm like, I have a couple New York Yankees hats because they sell them on the streets for like $4 a piece, and it's like they're great baseball
It's
caps.
efficient, you know. You might not support the team, but if they're very cheap,
Why
why not sport it?
I don't support any team, and the only time this has been a real disadvantage in my life is in a lost chapter of Tokyo Vice. One of the things you have to do as a freshman, like you're covering the police beat, you have to cover high school baseball.
Wow.
So because Japan doesn't have like big college baseball or professional baseball is professional baseball, but the equivalent of like hometown games is like these high school baseball tournaments where everybody roots for like the high school from their hometown. And they have this national tournament called Koshien that gets televised nationally. And it was a big deal like 30 years ago. So, you know, they're like, okay, you're going to have to cover high school baseball. And I'm like, you know, okay, so we're going to practice keeping score. I'm like, you know, like Adelstein, you'll do well at this. And I'm like, no, I won't. And they're like, why not? I'm like, because I don't know anything about baseball. They're like, what do you mean you don't know anything about baseball? You're an American. And I'm like, you're Japanese and your national sport is officially sumo. Would you like to break down the last tournament to me and tell me who won, what moves they were doing?
I will say stereotype-wise, it is very funny because they think that Americans are really into baseball. And like one of the nicknames for us is Yankee.
Oh, yeah.
Because they think about baseball.
Oh, no. Yankee was a nickname before the baseball team existed.
That's true. That's true. I'm
And
sorry.
so-
I can't give credit to that without
what
seeming
makes it even harder
illiterate,
is that
but
during the World
Yankee
War
didn't
II, baseball was
exist.
still a big thing, but they wanted to stop using all the westernized names. So like the dead ball, right, is called a shikyu, but it's also called deadboru or a strike. And so they have like all the Japanese terms for baseball, then they have the English terms. When you're writing these articles, you're supposed to know like which term to use. And then they taught us to keep score. You know, have you ever tried to watch a baseball game and keep score and write an article about it?
That's difficult.
No, I get day drunk and eat hot dogs.
Could you?
I mean, that's what I do at baseball games. I get day drunk and eat hot dogs. That's all I do.
Well, so we were assigned to do this, and I was so bad at it. At first, you could kind of bluff your way through because you're writing like,
Oh
you
no.
know, like 3 or 4 lines, like, you know, Team B, you know, gave it their best shot, but didn't have to what it takes. But then you would have to be getting like breaking it down and doing analysis of like Team A had like, you know, this many stolen bases and this many hits, and you know, the game changed when, you know, somebody had like a 2-base hit. And I turn in my articles, I would get screamed at by the editor. And I'm
Oh,
like,
no.
I am not going to survive high school baseball. But at this point in time, we still had film, right? We were still using film. So we had these kids from one of the high schools, and their job was to like get the film, either get in a taxi or get on a train and take it up to get developed.
Wow.
So there was this one kid, Takashi-kun, who I could tell was really smart. And so I took Kashikatsu in the sense that like, I don't understand baseball. I am dying here. I will pay you 1,000 yen a day to just read over my articles before I send them in. And so by the end of the period, I had paid this kid like $200. And when we got to do the last one, and it was like a complicated game, I had no fucking idea what was going on. And I started writing, and he just took to me and said, Jake-san, and he just moved me away from him. And he wrote the article. Bah, 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 bah. And he's like, do you want to look it over? And I looked it over, and it looks good to me.
You gotta give him a
Send it.
raise for that one.
I gave him 2,000 yen more. And I was like, kid, you saved my life. And he was like, it was so horrible. So the next year, we had to do it again. And like there was like a murder, and like I volunteered. Like, no, like I'll go to the crime scene. Like I left my post to go to the crime scene. Like, and I was like, I have to continue covering this story because I'm the first one on the scene. It was like, please. I hated high school baseball so much. It almost cost me my job.
Really, secretly, your avarice in going into the crime scenes was just to avoid high school baseball.
I would much rather write about the horrible murder than that cover some sweaty punk. Oh, and then I had one article which got totally killed, which I took out of the trash, but I really loved it. And it was about this, and it opened sort of like, there's a man in a shabby jean jacket holding a newspaper in his hand, looking at the games intently, with his eyes on every single move. And it was like he's bet he's bet $200 that Team A, the Arawa Eagles are going to win this game. But in the third inning, as the other team scores a 4-home run, it looks hopeless for him. And as the game ended and he was, getting ready to leave, he muttered to himself, I guess I'm going to be eating cup ramen tonight. And I turned it in and I got so yelled at. It's high school baseball. This is purity. You're writing a game about someone illegally betting on the outcome of a baseball game.
Were people actually betting on it?
Yeah. And I talked to him. I interviewed him. He's betting on the outcome of the baseball. He had a newspaper in his hand. He's clearly tracking the teams. I'm like, isn't that really the kind of feel you want? Like, I'm supposed to sort of convey what's happening at the arena.
But they probably wanted it to be simple and classic and innocent. Like, it's high school baseball.
Right, there's no degenerate gamblers betting on high school. Like, what level of degenerate gambler are you? They're like, high school baseball, I'm betting on high school baseball. Like, I may not be able to pay my rent this month because high school baseball.
But we can see where your heart was at because you wanted to really get the nitty gritty of this story.
Japanese, it was so beautifully written. It was such a great line. Like,
I'm so sorry.
スタジアム
That
を
it
後
was
にしながら、今日はカップラーメン食べるしかない。すごい焼いた。And then the other one that got me in serious trouble is like, because, I didn't realize that high school baseball in Japan is touted as this like sort of nationalistic, story of stoic endurism and blood and sweat and tears and, that the Japanese spirit triumphing over everything else. So I was mentioning like, yeah, today's game was so fucking boring, but at least like I was able to bum a cigarette off one of the kids behind the bleachers. They really liked my clove cigarettes. And they're like, what? Kids smoking? Like, kids can't smoke in Japan. They're like, who was this kid? And I realized,
isn't illegal drinking age 18?
Oh no!
I don't know what illegal drinking is. Nobody pays any attention to it.
Right.
Not when I
You
was.
can just drink whenever
get-
age you're at.
You get booze from a vending machine.
Oh,
Well, I mean, like, yes.
ouch!
Yes.
But so I realized that I'd gotten this kid in huge trouble because I'd shut off my mouth. I knew exactly who I was talking about. So I was like, they're yelling at me, they're screaming. I'm like, I'll have to go. Like, let me go check my notes. And I'm like, oh, I must have been wrong. It was the coach. Sorry for causing such a sensation. So I see the kid like 2 weeks later in another game because they're into the run-ups. And I'm like, dude. Like, I need to tell you, you should not be smoking behind the bleachers, but I almost got you kicked off and me fired. Like, so do not do that because you're going to get in serious trouble. And he's like, oh man, I'm so glad you didn't rat me out. I'm like, of course I wouldn't rat you out, but like, you can't smoke behind the bleachers. Like, smoke somewhere else.
I didn't rat you out. My editor stopped me.
No, they wanted that story so badly. They're like, scandal, high school baseball scandal. And I was thinking, like, fuck that shit. I mean, what's the crime? The kid's a little juvenile delinquent. He's like from, what was the school? It was like some school in, like Kawaguchi. It's like like this really redneck kind of blue collar district of Saitama. I think it was from like Bunan High School or something. I'm not going to ruin this kid's life because because he was dumb enough to give me one of his smokes. I'm like, no, thank you.
You're a good man, Jake. You're a good man.
Sometimes
Very honorable.
Sometimes I am.
That's all we can hope to be is sometimes.
But put on the spot, I was like, this isn't a story worth writing. Also, because I don't give a shit about baseball. There's that as well.
Underage smoking, that you care about. But
fuck it, man. It's free world.
yeah, it is. I super hate to do this because I'm having a blast. We've been doing this for like 2.5 hours.
That's good.
It is.
How much do you edit this down to?
Not much.
Okay.
I think you usually keep just about the whole thing.
I do.
Oh, the whole thing? That'll be fun. Then before we go, let me just say, this was also the greatest thing I found at Hustle Hollywood on my last trip, which is the Kama Sutra workout. So it is every single position, and then it tells you which muscles you're doing and how flexible you are and what are the benefits to you. And I just think it's an amazing book.
Have you warned Jessie that's coming home with you?
Oh, she is absolutely excited. And I told her, like, she's always getting me because I'm old. I'm like 55. She's like, you need to do mobility exercise.
How old is she?
She's 38, 39.
Good on you.
And she's like, you need to do mobility exercises. And I'm like, I showed her this book. And I was like, by the time this done, I'll be so flexible, honey.
Or dead.
Do this or dead.
Or dead.
Or dead. Hopefully not dead.
I hope not. I hope not dead. I hope the next reason I go to Japan is not your funeral, Jake.
But if it is my funeral, I can guarantee you I probably died happy. We all got to go sometime.
Well, for sure. I promise you, if I have to fly to Japan for your funeral, I will get blind drunk at your funeral.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
There we
very
go.
much.
You know how there's that one person who says like if you pay me a certain amount of money, I will weep at your funeral and throw myself into your grave for an extra bonus. We would do that.
I would.
I would just get blind drunk for free at his funeral.
And please pour booze.
Well, no, exactly. But
And please do a
yeah,
classic,
do it for free.
like B movie thing where you pour booze onto my grave, because that would also be
Just
really nice.
sob
This one's for
unintelligibly.
you, Jake, and then wipe away a tear.
Oh, I mean, we're Jews, so we don't do open casket. But otherwise, I'd put a flask in your casket with you.
Oh, it'd be good. Thanks, Matt.
Good booze too.
I feel like I'm ready for
Just
the afterlife.
infuse the soil surrounding the grave with alcohol. Just
I'll pour one out for the homie.
yeah.
I mean, in Japan, a lot of people don't have graves because you get cremated anyway. You can pour it directly into my urn. I'm sure Jesse will put it on the mantle or someplace.
Oh, but then it would be like ash soup.
That is kind of true. Okay, pour it on the grave. I'll get a grave.
Human remains from cremation are not like a fine powder. Like they're chunky with fat.
That's why it's soup.
That's why.
Stew.
That's why.
Stew.
That's why in Japan it's
Stew.
such a taboo to pass food from chopstick to chopstick, because after the body is cremated, before they get rid of the final remains, everybody takes the bones out of the ashes and passes it from person to person with chopsticks, and then disposes of it.
Oh shit.
And that is why it is considered in poor taste to pass food
I had
from
always
someone by chopstick.
I'd always known that it was in poor taste, but I didn't know that that's what the reason was. And that makes so much more sense now, because the association of thought with that, if you knew the cultural importance of that, it makes so much more sense.
I didn't know that one.
Oh.
All I knew was like, don't put your chopsticks in your food standing upright.
And don't point them at anyone. You should always generally have it placed in a way that's not actually pointing towards anyone.
And also do not stab someone in the larynx with the chopsticks.
Yeah, that would
unless
be-
they're really.
I can't promise that one.
Forte.
That one I can't promise. Jake,
Generally
curious, though.
not polite.
I was going to wrap this, but do you want your remains to remain in Japan or come back to fucking the States?
because the ashes can be divided in many places. I would like some of them buried on the farm where I grew up, because I mean that is where I was born. I would like some of them scattered in the ocean near where we live in Kyoto, and then Jesse's offered to turn some of it into like a little diamond necklace, which is because every year I go to the end of life exhibition called Endex, where they have the funeral bokers. That's one of the options. You can have someone turned into a
Artificial diamond.
a diamond or a shot. And then my fifth wish, but this is very expensive, and I really wouldn't expect anyone to do it. There is the Star Trek Voyager package where they put your ashes into a tiny capsule and they send it out past our solar system. And I would kind of like to have that done with a little picture of me and a little note that says, "Please reconstruct me better than I was."
So what is the percentages that you're dividing up here?
Like mostly, 20, 20, 20. And then if there's a little bit left, I would kind of like to be thrown into the ventilation system of Tokyo Dome so I could live on in Tokyo Heights for a couple of years.
That would be about
I don't-
40.
During a pro wrestling event that you don't care about.
and I don't think that I'm cancerous. Probably not.
Hopefully not. I mean,
Hopefully not.
I feel like you may be full of some carcinogens.
Okay, well, forget that one. That's probably not very nice, the Tokyo Dome. But the Space Voyager one, absolutely.
Oh, for sure. If aliens can't cure cancer, they can't put you back together.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it would be nice, to be recreated. It would be nice to have all my memories back, but I don't know if the alien technology is up to doing that.
That would be super fucked up. Like you just wake up and you're like, where the fuck am I?
If I didn't like it, I would be, you asked for it, dude, so there you are.
Yeah.
But it would only be 40% of you because the other 60% of you is
You
elsewhere.
just need a small amount. You just need a
Yeah.
little bit of DNA.
Just enough to replicate some form of awareness.
It would just be a Jake clone. It wouldn't be the real. Like,
True.
There we go.
Um,
Like how we're trying to get woolly mammoths in right now because
I can't
we were
wait to
able
taste
pick
woolly
up
mammoth.
DNA.
I cannot wait to taste woolly mammoth.
There we go.
It'd be delicious.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be, well, will it be as good as the Impossible White Castle burger, which I had in New York City?
Is it really?
It was really tasty. I did
I'm-
not expect it.
I love the White Castle burgers on their own. I'm very curious about the
I haven't had
Impossible
White Castle in a couple of
version.
years.
I feel
I'm
like it
fucking
would be.
upset about this.
I feel like it
There are
would
no
be
White
nice.
Castles in LA.
Yeah, I know. Because you're LA. But there is.
They're in Vegas.
There
There
is-
are in Vegas.
There's one in New York City now. I made a pilgrimage there. It wasn't as good as I remembered it, but they did have an
Because
amazing
it's an Impossible burger.
White Castle burger.
I super fucked up. I was back in Chicago a couple weeks ago for a funeral and did not hit White Castle.
Oh,
The other thing that I really miss, and I guess this shouldn't be our closing notes, but we'll wrap it up, is I really like Arby's curly fries. And it's the one thing on this trip that I didn't get. And
I'm sorry, the Arby's around the corner from here is closed down.
do you know what wraps it up though? The fact that you're wearing an Arby's hat that says
No, I'm wearing a
nothing.
nihilist Arby's hat.
a nihilist,
Yeah,
a nihilist.
that is an amazing hat
Arby's hat.
because it says
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
What is it supposed to say?
Nothing.
Arby's.
That's what it's supposed to say. No,
Arby's.
Nihilist Arby's is an amazing Twitter account.
Really?
Oh,
Nihilist Arby's.
Interesting.
Yes.
But-
It is run by
By
one of the members of
Arby's?
the Lawrence Arms.
I don't know what that is.
It's a punk band from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And Brendan, who runs the account, is a copywriter by trade. The Nihilist Arby's account has 10 times the followers the band's account has. And they're our nationally touring act. It's-
Have you ever heard of this site called despair.com? They make de-inspirational posters, and they have my favorite of all time because, once again, I'm going to plug my book one more time. Because in Tokyo
Please.
Noir, I talk about this period of time when I was doing consulting, private investigative work for multinational banks, and they have this beautiful poster on the site of people shaking hands, and it says, "Consulting. If you're not part of the solution, there's a lot of money to be made in prolonging the problem."
That's so true. That's so fucking true.
Well, thank you for having us on, Matt. It has been a delight.
It is always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
We're going to officially call last call on the Mr. Motherfucker. Before we get out of here, Jake has like an inch of booze left. Maybe a half an inch.
I think it's kind of congealed, so I don't know if I may have like a little sip of that or something.
Oh, actually, we have a thing to do after this.
Okay.
We have bonus content. But before we get you out of here,
Yes.
where can we find you on things, Jake Adelstein?
You can find me. Oh, wow. So many forums. You can find me on Instagram at Tokyo Vice. You can find me at Twitter under Jake Adelstein. You can find me on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Either at the show The Evaporated, Gone with the Gods, or Witnessed Night Shift. And now all of them are bingeable without having to pay Sony $5. But of course, you should pay Sony $5 because the content is so good.
It is. I was there for some of the taping of it. Well, with Evaporated. I was literally there for some of the taping of it and the box that went with it.
Yeah, and we're still together. We're still a crew, and we still have the box.
Well, tell the rest of the crew, hey, from me.
I will. I know that Shoko wishes she was here drinking with you because she would drink you and me, and and you under the table.
She would not drink me under the table.
You have not spent an evening with drinking. With
I tried to go do karaoke with you guys after the recording, and you're like, "Oh, we have to be responsible." I'm like, I will.
Oh, did I know we've ended the show. Did I tell you what happened on the last night of taping the show?
No.
So we are so behind because it's a podcast that is like about where we're not looking back. It's events are unfolding as we did it. As we're investigating, we're finding out more. So to the very end, we didn't know how it would end. So we finally finished taping at 3 a.m. We all go home. And then at about 11 a.m., I get a call from the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. And they said, we wanted to tell you that someone threatened to blow up the club and kill you on Friday. And they were just arrested last night. We didn't tell you because we didn't want to worry you. And I was like, I have been in the club the entire weekend, and you didn't tell me that someone was threatening to blow up the club and kill me? And they're like, that's something that I would have liked to have known.
Yeah, that's pretty irresponsible.
And then I was like, everybody is half dead. So I'm just going to send them an email right now rather than wake them up and say, hey, did you know someone was trying to kill us all weekend?
You know what? I'm trying to wrap this, but I have one more question, Jake.
Yes.
What number death threat was that for you over the course of your life?
Number 4.
Only number 4? I feel like that seems low for you.
I mean, I'm an amicable guy.
Yeah, you seem very friendly.
Right.
On the surface.
On the surface.
Yeah.
Unless you cross me.
There we go.
Oh, that's you making death threats, not being
Risk.
death threatened.
That's the risk.
Well, I mean, one generates the other. As,
Sometimes not. If you just do it.
Well, sometimes I'm just doing my job and they're in the way.
Wow.
And
So on that note, Leana Lovings, where can we find you on the things?
And my socials, without any death threats, are Twitter. You can find me as Leana Lovings. That's with capital L's. It's LeanaLovings. And my Instagram is the Leana Lovings, all lowercase, all spelled the exact same way. And that's about it.
This was fun. Jake, hopefully we do this again sometime soon. I guess next time I have to come to you.
You have to come to me, or I'm back in next year for I have a new book coming out.
There you go.
Well, I hope to be back in Tokyo sometime next year. So
I would love to see you in Tokyo. If not, I probably.
You as I was taking pictures all night, you were like, "Oh, I owe you a whole night out in Tokyo." So
I do. I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna take you to the finest strip club and titty bar, and then
I hate those if I'm not working at them.
Really?
Oh yeah, I want nothing to do with strip clubs if I'm not working.
Well, the thing is, if he's working, he needs to focus on his
sorry.
breasts.
I didn't understand who the real Matt Slayer is.
I'm a complicated man.
You are complicated. I will take you to a very good whiskey bar.
I appreciate that. Until next week, drink up, motherfuckers.
Cheers. Come by.
Come by.